Hello, this is Mad Cat, the angry egalitarian that discusses this and that. Today we're doing an update to the men's rights survey and non-feminist woman survey as well. We're going to be breaking this up into parts, so we're going to be doing this every Wednesday where I reveal a new part of the survey. And remember, feminists like numbers. Let's show them some numbers. So I'm also joined today with a special guest, Dan. For those who don't know, Dan was the one who went to, I believe it was, well, he can tell you, but he basically did a march and a hunger strike on a federal building in Canada. And, you know, he's someone I admire, so I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I care to say a few words, Dan?
A few words. Thanks for the introduction. You're too kind. Um, I walked about 75 miles from my hometown to the provincial capital, Toronto, and the Parliament building, Queen's Park there. And I sat there for 9 days and raised awareness about some issues. That's one of my claim to fames. I'm also kind of known for sitting there and suffering through 12 minutes of shut the fuck up, fuckface.
Wait, were you at that?
I am the epic beard guy from that. Big Red was screaming at me.
Because all I've ever seen is just Big Red talking to somebody, but I was always wondering who it was she was talking to.
That was me.
Oh, wow.
I had a full beard at the time, and yeah, that was me. She was screaming at, and I'm gonna say it again. Give her some breathing room right now. According to her Tumblr, her mother has just been diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and cancer is a nasty disease. I don't think there's any division between the two groups that it's a nasty disease, and those who are struck by it deserve a little bit of peace and quiet.
Yeah, I think that's a very good message. While they may not allow us that same courtesy, I think we should, what's that phrase? Go by example, let's show them courtesy, and maybe somewhere down the line they can show us courtesy when we need it the most. I think that's very wise.
Lead by example. Yeah, you know what?
Lead
Hey,
by example. I don't have words right now. I'm a writer. But so to all my viewers out there, if you type something in chat, I will try to get to it. However, I'm looking at multiple screens right now, so it's going to be a little bit of a delay for me to get to any of your messages. But I'll try to stay on top of that. We're going to go ahead and do a screen share. Let's see if this works. Wonderful. Now, before, when I did the screen share, oh, is it doing that again? I hate when it does this. Hold on, let me try closing some things. All right, so let me close one more thing if my mouse wants to work. All right. Okay, so it looks like we're good there. So it might fade to black a couple of times. I apologize ahead of time. My computer really sucks. It's from 2009, so I got to make do with what I got. Anyways, we first started talking about this survey when we were at 100 responses, and we are now nearly at 400 responses. And this is important because feminists love talking in numbers all the time. 1 in 3 men will commit rape if they can. 1 in 5 college women will get raped, or 1 in 6 women will get raped sometime in their life. And these numbers are complete bullshit, but I mean, even that 1 in 3 number only had a very small sample size of, I think, like 60. And we now have 400 responses here. And this is probably a lot more meaningful as far as the results go than any feminist study can, because there's nothing that people gain here by lying or being truthful. Well, they do have something to gain by being truthful, to represent what's really going on in the world and what their true opinion is. Unlike many other surveys where um, feminist surveys often try to coerce students into doing it in their classroom or try to offer them credit for college. So, anyways, we'll take a quick look at the personal information stuff, and Dan's going to just jump in at any time and say something funny, serious, it hits his way. And then we'll get to some of the issues to where Dan's more of an authority on this subject than I am, and I'm interested to hear what he says and his responses to these things. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So as we can see, it's very close between men and women, or male and female, since this is biological identity, of who took this survey. We have 399 responses, 194 men, 197 females, and 2 that are intersexed. I do want to note that when I figured all of this out, it was at 397, so my numbers might be slightly off. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down. What is your gender identity? Of the things that we see up here, 204 of the participants identify as man, and 30 identify as non-binary. Of the near 400 people, 55 identified as transgendered. Of this selection here, let me get back to it. So we got transgendered man, which was the highest rating at 42.6%. That went up a little bit. Then we have transgendered woman, non-binary, and agenderless. And that makes up about 70% of those who identify as a transgendered. Okay, so let's go through sexual orientation. Sexual orientation, we see that the top ones are heterosexual, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, and homosexual. And that equates for about 96% of the respondents. 82% were the top 3 of heterosexual, bisexual, and asexuality. If you're not sure what those are, I recommend looking them up. It's not really pertinent to some of the results that we see, but it's good to know what kind of sample size we have.
What is demisexual? Is that like feminine, screwing crucifixes, screwing demigods kind of thing? I'm kind of curious about that one.
Well, I'm a demigod, so, maybe I fit into that.
Just an interesting,
Actually, I'm kind of curious because I don't really know what demisexual is offhand. I know what all the others are, I just don't know what demisexual is.
Polysexual. So you screw anybody? Well, that definitely sounds like a feminist term. They'll fuck anybody they want. At any given chance, even themselves. They'll fuck themselves over. Non-platforming. Fuck yeah, that sounds like a fairly feminist term.
Polysexual, I'm not really sure what they're trying to go for with that, because it would basically mean they were pansexual, but I think it's just basically they don't really care about gender or anything like that. They'll just, like, if they're in the mood to have sex, they'll find the closest person to them. I mean, because pansexuality is basically that you're not attracted to a person's gender, you're attracted to their personality. So gender doesn't mean anything to you. Okay, so we also have romantic orientations. So we have, like, if people want to screw, that's who they screw, but if they want to date someone, this is who they'll date. The top 2 being heteroromantic and biromantic. That takes up about 71% of the people here. Okay, so where do you live? As you can see, we have a vast majority in North America. Then we have Europe and Australia. Those are the major places. How old are you? How old are you, Dan? Dan?
How old am I? Well, I'm 46, so that would be I'm 29 years old with about what 17 years worth of experience.
There we go. So as you can see, the bulk of the ages exist between 13 to about 35, and that equates for 94% of the participants. However, ages 17 to 25 equate about 62% of the entire 400 people that took this. So we got a lot of young people taking this survey. We need to get some old people in on this, you know? I mean, I'm sure all of you all have opinions. There will be a link in the box below when this video is done. So if you want to take this survey and help with some of the stats, as you can see, a vast majority are white. And then we have Hispanic and Latino, then Black and Asian. So that's not too surprising since the majority of the people taking this are from Europe and America. But, you know, this is the sample size that we have. So I think it's going to be very good because there's a lot of misinformation, especially by feminists and social justice warriors, about white people. I mean, even Mufasa, I know that's not her name, that's just what I call her, is, you know, kill all white men. Well, here's a chance to hear what white men have to say. Not just white men, but the majority of them. Okay, I don't really care about religious groups at all. So let's jump down to what gender rights movement do you identify with? And here's the interesting part, is that 9% identify as feminist. And this was multiple choice. They could choose any one of these things that they wanted to. I mean, none of the above got higher than feminism. What do you think about that, Dan?
I think that a lot of people are wising up to feminist bullshit, lies, and lies for profit, and realizing that feminism is just another ism. Only it's based on, its hatred is based on sex. Whether you are born XX or XY. If you are born XY, then hey, you're to blame for everything.
Of course, egalitarianism scored the highest with 74%. My stats round everything up a little bit. So anti-feminism got 41%, gender equality movement 37%, men's rights movement 29%. I mean, how that's still higher than feminism, and a lot of people are like skittish around the term men's rights movement. So yeah, I definitely agree with Dan that people are starting to wake up to the bullshit of feminism. Even women's rights movement, 15%, but only 9% said they're feminists. So I think that's starting to paint a pretty clear picture.
Well, given the recent events there, they kind of are sulkowitzing in the bed that they made.
The bed that they made and carry around with them.
Yeah, yeah, and try and bully people and bully, institutions. Like they're sulking in the bed they made, sulkowitzing in the bed they made.
All right, so switching sheets here real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next part. Now I'm going to do both of these back to back real quick since they're both talking about circumcision. The first one is circumcision is the religious right of the parents. 84% strongly disagreed with that, with 12% kind of like not sure. And then the second one, circumcision is a type of genital mutilation. 84% agreed with that, and then 8% for kind of don't know, and 8% disagreed with that. So what are your thoughts on that, Dan?
It absolutely is genital mutilation. There is no refuting that fact. The numbers, if I, off the top of my head, it's one third. A circumcision removes one third to one half of the adult penile skin, 4 feet of blood vessels, 240 feet of nerves, and about 20,000 nerve endings. Now that is mutilation. If we were to apply that to any other body part, eyelids, breast buds, whatever, we would be saying it's mutilating healthy body parts. But because it's a male body part, who cares? And by the way, most people don't kind of realize this, but male and females have a foreskin. It's called the prepuce.
Well,
Prepuce, I believe is the proper spelling of it, if memory serves.
well, an argument I like to use with circumcision is that they're saying that 1 in 1,000 children will get an infection if they're not circumcised. I'm like, well, yeah, but 1 in women will get breast cancer. By that logic, we should be cutting off girls' breasts.
We could be well, that would be the breast buds, but there's ocular cancer. So geez, let's remove the eyes. How about kidneys? Kidney cancer. There's an interesting one. Maybe we should be removing people's kidneys because we don't want them getting kidney cancer or something along them lines. There's all kinds of bladder infections. Geez, well, women get bladder infections, so maybe we should be looking at that issue kind of there as well. Lots of interesting arguments that kind of don't make sense when you start applying it to different body parts.
Certainly so. All right, so let's go ahead and move on from this because we do have a lot to go through on this. So, okay, men have less reproductive and birth control options than women. So the results of this is that 76% agree with this and 15% were kind of in the middle. What is your response, Dan?
Well, we kind of lost your screen, but as far as the right to choose parenthood, hey, well, 50% of his DNA went into making, into conception, so he should have 50. He should have at least a say in how his DNA is used. So, I'm not comfortable with saying that anybody should have control over another person's body. So I would say that the only acceptable solution would be for men to have the right to legal parental surrender, in which that in the same time that a woman can physically abort the fetus, he has the right to say, hey, I'm waiving all my rights, my legal rights and responsibilities to that child, and that way he still has control over his body, his sperm, his choice, and she still has her body, her choice.
I recently had a conversation with a feminist, and she was kind of going through the whole spiel. Well, you don't understand what feminism is, and blah blah blah. And the usual stance that I go with is, well, name 5 things that women don't have that men do, and of course they can't really name anything, so they try to reverse it on me, and I'm prepared for that. And one of the things I bring up is reproductive rights, and I'm like, well, women can steal sperm and get pregnant, and the man's still financially responsible. And it was funny this time because she's like, oh, that doesn't happen. And I'm like, yeah, it does. So I showed her like 3 different articles of where it's happening. Either it was done in rape, or there was the story of the woman who gave a man a blowjob, and then he cummed in her mouth, and then she used it to impregnate herself. And the court said that when he ejaculated into her mouth, it was a gift that she could use it any way she wanted. And she was like, oh my, she was like really surprised by it, the reality of this. And that's why I do a lot of what I do to try to bring this out there. I think all of us need to do it because sooner or later it's going to be so hard for anyone to ignore this information. Because that's right now what I think feminists are doing, is just ignoring information that's not part of their narrative.
Well, yeah, they like to have their heads in the sand and their arse up in the air so that they can be ideologically screwed at any given time. And let's not forget the male rape victims being forced to pay for a choice they never made, they never got to make.
Yeah, there was a story last year in Arizona about this 22-year-old man, or 21, 22, somewhere around that age, who was told by DES, Department of Economic Security in Arizona, that he had to pay back child support payments and tax, and he was like $15,000 he owed the state. Now the thing is, the reason why he didn't pay is he never knew that he got a woman pregnant because she um, raped him when he was 13 years old and got pregnant.
And there's also another one that I believe it's Cornell Smith brings up. Like, hey, like, you don't even have to be the father. They just point and say, yeah, that's the guy who did it. He's the father. All of a sudden, now he's on the hook for child support, even if he's not biologically the father.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research on that, and there are a number of states. I believe Ohio and California are two of them, but I believe there are 20 states that have this, that you can tell the courts that man's the father, and they'll send him out a letter saying that he has 30 days to refute it, and they'll pay for the DNA test. But what if it doesn't show up in the mail, or it gets lost, or something like that? Doesn't matter. If he doesn't do it within 30 days of her identifying him as the father, he's on the hook to pay for that child. Even after 30 days, he can prove that he's not the father. Men
Yeah.
have no reproductive rights.
Well, they got two rights: the right to pay or the right to go to jail.
I don't know. I kind of see those as privileges, honestly. I mean, feminists are always saying we have privileges.
Well, I guess it is a privilege. You get three hots and a cot. You get a job too. It might not pay well, maybe 10 cents an hour, and then they might charge you, for soap and toothpaste and whatnot from the prison confectionery there. Yeah, but I guess it is a privilege.
Okay, so this one was a little bit all over the place as far as the results go. Boys are less affected by dress code than girls. So the results of this is that 45% disagree with this statement, 28 were in the middle, and 27% agreed with it. And
Well,
go
I
ahead.
would say that boys have less options to dress. What do we got? We got shorts, jeans, or pants, and a shirt. Now, if you're Scottish, you can go brave and wear a kilt. Irish too, I think. But other than that, we have less options. The whole, really, the whole fashion industry is geared towards women. It's, basically driven by women. And by that I mean they're the ones who buy the fashion magazines. They're the ones who spend the money on the fashions. They're the ones who have, my God, 50,000 frickin' shoes to go for whatever day of the week. I think I've got about 5 pair of shoes, two good ones, one set of boots, and a couple of casuals for the summer.
And I'm in Arizona, so I've just got sandals all year long. Um, my stance on this is that I do disagree with this statement that they're less affected. I think that they're more affected because women do have a lot more options of what they can wear with dress codes. Now, of course, this kind of suggests like in school, but even in business, we have to usually wear a button-up shirt, slacks, nice shoes, and that's it. Women could wear slacks, they can wear a skirt, they can wear a blouse. They don't have as many restrictions as men do, whether it's in school or business. And yet women are the one, or girls are complaining, oh, it's too restrictive. I can't wear the clothings that I buy. Now, there's one part of this that I disagree with, and I kind of support women on this to a degree, that oftentimes girls are told to go home from school to change because they're breaking the dress code policy, and they're told, well, we're afraid you'll be a distraction for boys. That's so stupid. I don't know if that's actually true because it sounds so idiotic. But in all honesty, these girls should be told, look, when you get out into the professional world, you're still going to have a dress code. You want to dress like a skank, you can do that on your own time. When you're at school, you dress for success. And that's what people should be being told.
You know what? And it should apply to guys as well. the young bucks going to school with their frickin' pants hanging around their ankles, showing off their boxers. You're there to learn. You're not there to make fashion statements. It's not the fucking runway in Paris, France. Okay, it's a place where you're supposed to be learning things. Now, yeah, I don't want to say that you can't express yourself with your clothes, but my God, you don't need to have your fucking pants hanging around your ankles. For the guys and girls, you don't need to be showing off what color panties you got on. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, that's what, after school is about. That's what you do on the weekends. You can do those things at that time. When you're at school, you're there to learn. So, yeah, I perfectly agree with that. All right, let's go ahead and move on from this. Men and boys who are rape victims are underrepresented in the media. I don't really need to do like the analysis of that. We can see that there's that people strongly agree with this statement. And I'm going to assume that Dan agrees with that as well.
Absolutely, there's an incredible video. I believe it's called "Rape is Hilarious," seriously hilarious, or seriously funny, or something like that. And it is absolutely spot on, correct. If a guy comes forward and says, hey, I was forced into sex, well, you must have enjoyed it. You had a physical response. You must have enjoyed it. It was good. You liked it, didn't you? Blah blah blah. Talk about victim blaming. Holy shit! Now there's real victim blaming, not this alleged victim blaming that feminism puts out there, which is actually, examining the facts and wanting, the best information and the best evidence to be put forth.
There was a really good video that I saw, and I think it was like in Montreal or something, but or it could I don't remember exactly, or like Detroit or something. But anyways, this detective is interviewing these two girls that state that they got raped, and this female detective is saying, "You're lying. This didn't happen." And it's actually kind of like the exception to the rule that girls tend to be believed when it comes to rape. And being underrepresented in the media, there are many times that men and boys are raped or have bad things happen to them as a result of being men, and no one cares. I mean, the fact that the girl who's carrying around her mattress is being like, she got invited to like the president's State of the Union address by a senator. Um, she makes a mockery of all rape victims because it's been proven that she wasn't a victim, and yet she's being rewarded for her bad behavior, and she's just a publicity stunt, and it hurts actual rape victims. And the the man who's being accused still has to suffer a lot of harassment because it's still like, oh well, he was the one who raped me, even though it's been found that he didn't rape me.
You know what? This is a really interesting situation that's playing out here. And I will say, caveat emptor there, universities. And, by that I mean buyer beware. When you buy into this rape culture lie put out there by feminists, okay, buyer beware. Because you know what? Now those who are falsely being accused of rape are suing your institutions. And what that's going to lead to is the lawyers. And once the lawyers smell money in the water, good luck. I see a lot of bankruptcies happening. And I'm also going to point to Judith Grossman, former, or I believe she is a former feminist. If not, she is a feminist still. But it was her son that got caught up in this rape culture lie for profit that's put out there by feminists. And now she's like, what the hell have we done? And I really don't have much sympathy for Judith, but for her son, he has my utmost sympathy and empathy. His mother created a situation and basically, set up a brutal trap for her son to fall into, and he did fall into it. And that is a really, really sad state of affairs. It took her son getting hit by this monster called rape culture that gets promoted on campuses. It took for her son to get hit, before she, turned around and realized that she had done something horrible and heinous to half the human race. Um, what's it gonna, how many other mothers were out there going, were in tears at their son being, falsely accused of sexual assault or rape. Now in Canada, we have we don't have rape. We have three levels of sexual assault, and the numbers, if I remember correctly, and this is put out there by the feminist dogma there machine. They put out the number, I believe it's 464 or 472,000 in the last 5 years for the General Social Survey. I think that's what it was, either last 5 years or last year. Don't quote me on it, but it's somewhere around that number. What they don't mention is that 205,000 men reported it as well. Now, there's something else that really kind of bothers me, and that is how they try and define rape, sexual assault. Really, all it should be is forced, not an unwanted kiss, not something unwanted, because theoretically unwanted could mean you wake up in the morning, you got morning breath, you kiss your spouse, and it's unwanted. Well, there you go, that classifies at, yet that makes it onto the unwanted sexual assault kind of numbers. Forced should be the qualifier, and that should be it. And it should be forced either way, whether it's a guy or a girl that's doing the forcing. Now, there's also an incredible study by Dines. I believe that's her name, Dines or Danes out there, and they show parity in the sexual assaults. I believe it was 2.1% of men and 1.9% of women reported being forced into vaginal sex, sorry. So there's parity, just like everything else. Women are just as evil or as good as men. Why feminism doesn't like that truism, I don't know. Maybe it's because they make a lot of fucking money at it.
Yeah, in the end, it is a business. But, taking what you're saying about Canada and putting America into perspective like that, we have Mary Koss to thank for how rape is understood in our criminal system, that forced to penetrate, which is basically female on male rape, is not considered rape. It is considered a sexual assault. So when we have the rape statistic by like the RAIN organization or the CDC, we notice that there's a low percentage of males being represented in this, because the definition of rape, also the FBI, is that it's basically having penetration done to you, which represents females. But if we were to take the force to penetrate statistic and put it into the rape statistic, then it would be about average of victimology of men and women. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Koss is another one of those slippery gender ideologues who, just seems to be in it for the profit. Just, in it for the profit, and whether that profit comes in, control of the narrative or in dollars, it doesn't really seem to matter to them.
all right, so moving on, but there is a comment in chat. The venerable Beatty, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but it's like, wow, you got Dan on the show. I had blackmail on Dan, so it was either this or reveal a secret to the world. So, shh. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here. Men and boys with mental illnesses are underrepresented in the media. So, looking at the numbers here, 67% agree with that statement, 24% a little bit undecided, and about 9% disagree with that statement.
Well, let me see. I've been hammering at this, men's mental health issue for a few years now. I've written about it at least twice, maybe three times. I can tell you right off the hop that men make up 76%. It's just over 76% over the years of 2000 to 2011. Men make up 76% of all suicides. Now, there's two disturbing peaks, one at around 20 and one at around 40 to 60, where they make up really pretty much 80% of all suicides. So in essence, what we are doing is burying our sons and fathers there. Now, the rates for Canada is about 8 men a day across Canada. So that's one every 3 hours. In Ontario, we have approximately 39% of the population in Ontario. So that works out to about 3 of them being in Ontario. Although I suspect that, that's just going by, the percentages. I suspect there might be a little bit more given the numbers in Ontario and the number of family courts and whatnot in Ontario. But anyways, just going off the 39% number, that means 3 of them in Ontario. That means one every 8 hours. So once every 8 hours in Ontario alone, we have, communities having their, a huge, nasty hole ripped in them. So there's the work, the immediate family community. There's the social community where that person lived. And then, the work community where, one day they're there, next day they're gone. Now, over the years, my first experience with that came in 1982, May 8th, 1982, with my brother killing himself. And I was really close getting into the high school at that age. There, I was around 12, 13. So when I went into high school, I lost Alan, Chris, and 2 brothers that were all in the same, they were all in my age group, all in the fucking high school area. So there's another 4 that died just at the high school level. I know I lost a couple more friends, that I went to school with over the years. And then the last one was Earl Silverman, which was April 26, 2013. So, I can safely say, 5, 6 people that I know that killed themselves. And I know that women do it. And, those families have my empathy and compassion. But I can honestly say that I do not know of a woman that has done it. It is a terrible, terrible, thing to happen. It is nasty. It hurts people for years and years and years, and we seem to be doing nothing about it. My whole walk was pretty much blanked by the media community, and really I don't know why that happened. 75-mile walk and about 1,000 stickers put up from here to Toronto, and they thought that wasn't news. Now, on top of that, the Canadian Mental Health Association, which receives government funding, last time I checked, and it wasn't that long ago, they had 11 papers for women's mental health, which is awesome, but only 1 for men. Hey, let's maybe think about the people that are actually ending up in the graves. This year, they finally, out of 64 years, they decided, hey, you know what? Let's just kind of throw the guys a bone here and give them a year where it's men's mental health, right, that we're going to concentrate on. Now, really, to add insult to injury, there's that going on. Okay, on top of that, we've got businesses like Shoppers Drug Mart that, even though they're supposed to be in the healthcare industry and probably be paying attention to these things, well, they had 2 runs for women's mental health during Men's Mental Health Week, the National Mental Health Week. Now, when I approached them and said, hey, you know what, maybe you want to donate a little bit of money to to guys' mental health, it was met with indifference, depraved indifference. So Shoppers Drug Mart never gets a dime out of me again, and I would advise people not to fucking spend their money in Canada there, and if you're in the States, don't spend your, whatever their affiliate is down in the States there. I wouldn't spend a dime there either. To show depraved indifference to the health and well-being of half the human race, it should not be rewarded with money and profit. So, let's take away some of their profit. Maybe they'll start listening.
Well, I myself have been fortunate that I don't know of anyone who has committed suicide. So I've been fairly fortunate there. But, I suffer a mental illness. I have post-concussion syndrome. It's been 3 years, and I still haven't gotten proper medical care. It will be 3 years July 6th or July 5th. I forget which day at this point. And it is I've lost everything in my life. I've lost friends. I lost my career. I was forced to move back home. I've lost everything. And I can't get a doctor to care. They keep saying, well, you have depression or you have sleep apnea. We're not going to look at any of your other symptoms. I can't get on disability because a doctor won't, actually understand what's wrong with me. And, I'm willing to bet if I was a female, there would be a doctor who cares. If I had tits and a pussy, there would be a doctor trying to help me and do everything they can to take care of me. But because I'm a male, no one gives a shit. And I've been close to suicide a few times. I mean, I'm looking at the prospect of never having a complete life again. I haven't really been face to face and talked to someone for about 2 years. And it's like, how am I supposed to wake up every day and continue to live that life? And, it's a struggle. But I know for a fact if I was a female, I wouldn't be having this problem. So that question really, I feel, is really personal for me.
You know what? I did not know that. I never would have known that unless you volunteered up that information. I interacted with you on Skype chats and whatnot, and seemed, you hide it well. You do when I shouldn't say you hide it well, but you cope and you cope well. I'll pay you that compliment with it. Um, I I'll point to Nietzsche, and he said that contemplation of suicide has carried many a man through a perilous night. And he also said that which does not kill me only makes me stronger. So you take those two and make sure that you don't. I don't want to know another friend, man. I really don't. Please don't.
Well, there's a couple of people out there that have been kind of watching me to make sure that something like that doesn't happen. But as far as like in the Skype chats, I'm always afraid that I talk about it too much, so I kind of step back a little bit. But mostly it's centered around loneliness, and if I have people to talk to in Skype chat, I'm good. So it kind of like is very therapeutic when we get into like voice chats and talk. So you're like really doing me a major favor when that happens.
Well, then if I'm on Skype, you see me, don't be afraid to reach out.
All right, so let's get back to the fun stuff again. All right, so here's a good one. Women who have affairs with their underage students should not be convicted. Well, over 90% strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, I'd really like to know who that 2.5% that strongly agree. Like really, who figures that that a young male's health and well-being, mental health and well-being, physical health and well-being, and possible if he can't afford to pay, he's going to jail kind of deal. Who wants to see that? What are those 10 people that want that to happen? Really, and what is it that they have against half the human race being shown, equal compassion, consideration, and care?
Well, there's also something about this because you said a male student. This just said underage student. Because one of the things that's interesting about feminism is that they don't even look at the issue of female on female rape. So what happens to those girls that are having affairs with their teachers? If it's a man having an affair with an underage girl, oh, it's the worst thing ever. If it's a woman having an affair with an underage boy, well, that's one lucky boy, but we never hear about a teacher having an affair with an underage girl.
It is really, really hard to find numbers on that. And I've done research on it, and I have, been able to find some things, but they're like 1995, and they say that there's an issue going on, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we don't want to study this issue because hey, it might look, we might have double X's looking, like they could be evil beasts.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems with feminism is they don't want to admit that it is possible for a female to rape another female. And there's a lot of victims that go unnoticed. And it makes me wonder if feminists will actually pressure women into not reporting something because it will ruin their narrative. It's only rape if it's a man. That's the only qualifier. You know,
Did they say that, did they say the same thing? Oh, she must have enjoyed it because it was with a woman. Well, and don't forget we got like Eve Ensler, the coochie scorcher there, the good rape. And don't forget there's also the rad femmes there that, always preach about how, you know, teaching them the way is the only way, right? And, kind of, hey, these older lesbian radical feminists are, looking at these young girls and seeing potential sexual partners. And that is really, deplorable. The fact that they want to hide that, sweep it under the rug, and want that to remain hidden instead of addressing the issue, the whole problem. They only want to, they only want to paint it as just evil bastard, penis owner, XY, always guilty.
I think it was, and I sort of remember her name, Janet Flamingo, the speaker. She was at a college talking about rape, and she mentioned that women on women rape is very prevalent, and someone just yelled at her. It's like, that's not true. I want proof right now. I want proof right now. And she just absolutely blew up at the idea that there's rape within lesbianism.
Well, I think that might have been Janice Fiamengo at Queen's University because I believe they shut her down at the University of Ottawa, and I believe that it might have been at Toronto too. And I was at that event. Let me tell you, that was a wild experience. First, let me just touch upon the Toronto event. It was absolutely surreal. So, after Janice, gives her little talk, there was, a group of people that kind of got up and said, this is why we're involved, sort of deal. And one of them happened to be a black man. Now, they open up the floor to the Q&A, and the first thing that happens is that this feminist social justice warrior black man gets up and says, I don't like this because it's racist. And like, I just couldn't believe it. We just witnessed a black man say, this is the problem. I had some issues in family court. I want to be a loving parent and have an enriching, productive, positive experiences in raising my child. And here it was completely ignored just so that they could toss out this narrative that non-feminists are racist. That was a really interesting experience. Now, if that second one about the lesbian sexual assault and stuff like that, I think that might have been Queen's University, and that's where Adele Mercier is from. And if you don't know who Adele Mercier is, she is a philosophy teacher at Queen's University, and she let out with that male male victims in juvenile correctional facilities weren't being raped by their female guards. No, no, they were enjoying it, even though no meaningful consent can be given between jailer and and someone who's interned there in the jail. Okay, there can be no meaningful consent can be given because that relationship does not permit it. There's a huge power imbalance there, and so no meaningful consent can be given. But according to Adele, it's just young men who like to have sex. Well, it's kind of a little bit deeper than that, Adele. It is older women picking on young men in a compromised position, a compromised situation, getting sex out of them, and that is deplorable, and it is a form of forced sex. And sorry, Adele, you're wrong, and you should be known by your feminist colors and what you said.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. This is all really great stuff. I'm enjoying all of this, but we have to keep moving on. So this kind of goes into what was said last, and we've already kind of talked about this. I'll just mention this and kind of move on. But women who rape men and boys are not rapists. Vast majority strongly disagree with that, and I think both me and Dan pretty much said that already. So let's go ahead and move on. Women who perpetrate crimes are not as bad as men who do the same. Vast majority disagree with that. Dan?
Yeah, you know what? You could probably chalk that up to 98% exactly now because I strongly disagree with that. You know what? You do the crime, you do the time. Same thing. Don't care whether you stand to pee or squat to pee or cock your leg to pee for that matter. you know what? You're equal in my eyes, and you should be equal in the eyes of the law. Matter of fact, equality under the law is enshrined in Canada's Constitution 3 times. Once in the preamble, you know that Canada is a nation built upon the supremacy of God and the rule of law. Now, you know, we can drop off the supremacy of God, but the rule of law, it needs to be God in the courts. Section 15 says that, you know, equality under the law, services, and protection of the law. And Section 28 says no discrimination between the sexes. So it's enshrined in our Constitution 3 times here in Canada, and the courts need to be paying attention to that, even though they don't. I imagine that, you know, there are similar things, provisions in the American Constitution as well.
Actually, the problem with the American Constitution is it says, like, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I don't think that's the Constitution, but it's often used in law. Um, so it keeps making references to men. And it's using man as a general sense. It's meaning both men and women. But the court system in the United States, you know, it's what they're saying, that women receive 40% less of a sentence than men do. And there have been a lot of studies into this, and there was one woman who really, you know, didn't just look at the first sentencing, because you don't necessarily get the full sentencing at that point. Actually, I don't know a whole lot about this because I'm going to stop talking about that, but um, I don't really have any of the facts there. But as far as, you know, in general, women do receive a lot less sentencing than men do. But you never hear feminists talk about that inequality. If they want to be equal to men as they claim, they need to be equal in punishment. But if anything, feminists are trying to prevent women from going to jail, period. They could kill men. They could do horrible things to children, and feminists will fight to prevent them from going to jail.
Well, and you know what? I believe I remember the study you're talking about. It was a Harvard law professor or Harvard law student that did the study. They controlled for all factors, including criminal history. So, you know, they compared apples to apples and oranges to oranges. They didn't skew it, either way by cherry picking, different to compare different kind of groups. So yeah, there's that. I'm pretty sure it was a Harvard study. Um, Also, in Canada, there are individuals out there who know more about the American situation, but I can talk about the Canadian situation. In Canada, well, we had an incredible case go through the system, Michael Ryan's case. So for those of you who don't know, what happens is that Michael Ryan's going through a divorce. He's about 100 miles away from from his soon-to-be ex, Nicole Doucette. I will not, dishonor his name by attaching, her. I'll use her maiden name, not her married name, Nicole Doucette. Um, they're going through a divorce. He's like, there's 100 miles separating, or 200 miles separating the two. They're going through a divorce. She tries to hire a hitman 3 or 4 times, and as luck would have it, the last time that she tries to do it, it happens to be an RCMP officer. Now, on videotape, the RCMP asks her, was, Michael abusive? And she, chuckles and says, oh, no, no, no. And she kind of lets on that, it'd be really good if, Michael kind of, fell, or met his demise before the divorce proceedings kind of went through. So she gets caught, and she gets, charged with attempted murder, conspiring to commit attempted murder, and it goes into the courts. So the first thing she does is, she uses the abuse defense, and that defense starts off with R.V. Lavalley, is the Supreme Court ruling in Canada. So she, her lawyer, puts forth the abuse defense. The Crown thinks it's a slam dunk, although I don't know why they, would think that, any case is a slam dunk, and it really probably should have been a slam dunk, but they decide that it's a slam. They don't need Michael Ryan's testimony. So it goes through the first thing, and I believe that she was, I think possibly found guilty or not guilty, whichever one it was. They decided to appeal it. Went to the appeals court. Again, they didn't like the decision, and worked all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada. Now, the Supreme Court of Canada, in their infinite wisdom, and I really do not know, I use that term wisdom very, very loosely here. They say, they don't buy her defense, but they figure that, her not doing, any time in jail, not being punished for, trying to kill her husband, her ex-husband, I should say, has suffered enough, and they stay proceedings. So in effect, she can never be charged for this. She's free and clear, and Michael Ryan has to walk the days, walk his days, his remaining days, pretty much looking over his shoulder, because at any given time she could come back and try it again. Now, there was also some other altercations that went on. Apparently, her family tried to, inflict physical damage upon Michael, and this would have to be confirmed, but just loosely, and I can't say 100%, but yeah, there was, some talk about how she had gotten her brothers and father to attack Michael as well. Now, Michael has is a former serviceman, so he's done military service. He was he was a jumper, so jumping out of airplanes there, which is that's a lot of that's got to take a lot of spine, a lot of courage to do that, as far as I'm concerned. It's a perfectly good airplane. I'm not sure that I would want to just say, hey, see ya, but that's some people do enjoy it, and some people like it, whatever. So he served his country, and his country failed him miserably, and that is, that's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned as a Canadian. We rely on those people to protect us, and guard the home front, and we may not agree with where our government is sending them, but by God, we better fucking make sure that their rights are protected at home. It's up to us to keep the home fires burning for them. And so, whether or not you agree on where our country is sending our service personnel, we best make sure that they're protected when they get back home. Anyways, that's my spiel on that. Sorry for taking up so much time.
Oh, no, no, that's perfectly fine. I didn't know about that case, but there's one of my friends. She's Canadian. She goes by the name of Godless Mom. And, when I first met her and I read this story about her, it was just like absolutely outstanding. That it just kind of blew my mind that someone was capable of this. Um, she, and this is a public story, so I think I'm okay to talk about it. She got raped. Now, she's been raped twice in her life, and the second time was by someone she knew. And she went to like the police and reported the crime, and they were going. I guess the Crown was going to prosecute the guy, and they were only taking her statement as evidence. And she's like, well, wait a minute, aren't you going to like investigate this at all? And they're pretty much like, no, we really don't need to investigate this. And she's like, well, isn't it like innocent until proven guilty? And the Crown's like, well, no, that's America, we don't really care about that here in the States. And he walked into court without legal defense. He had no legal defense whatsoever. And even though this guy raped her, she walked away. She said that she would not be part of a system that would force a man into a trap like that. He had no way of getting out of it. I mean, yeah, he's guilty, of course, but he should still have, adequate procedure into this, that they should investigate her claim, get all the facts and all the details. All they cared about was her statement. There was no way he could have defended himself, and she walked away from that. We need more women like her in the world that will look and see an injustice and, stand up to it.
Absolutely, and I'm going to point out something else. And again, this is Canadian stuff, Canadian law, and this is kind of stuff that I kind of know a little bit about. But the top case for investigations and disclosure is what's known as RV Stinchcom. It was presided over by, or the ruling was handed down by, Supreme Court Justice Sapinka, and if I remember correctly, the ruling went along the lines of the fruits of an investigation are not the sole property of the Crown to ensure a conviction, but are the property of the people to ensure justice is done. So, in other words, what he's saying is that a full investigation needs to kind of happen, and the results of that investigation are to be, used by both sides to, ascertain the truth, the facts, what is, what did actually happen. And from the sounds of her case, there was, they weren't going to investigate everything or anything. They just wanted to, string the guy up and hang him out to dry. I believe I can't say yay or nay. It's her story. She owns it. It's her choices, and I respect her choices on that thing, on that matter. But just to touch upon what the law says is supposed to happen and what is happening, there's a huge gap there.
Well, and that was something that I remember about your whole walk and all of that is that you were trying to tell your state officials or government officials that the law states that men and women should get equal protection under the law, and yet men don't. And I think that was one of the main things that you're trying to point out to state officials.
Yeah, provincial, and that's our equivalent of the state, right? States, we have provinces. Yeah, I did the walk, and then I finished off the walk, and then I decided to turn up the heat a little bit more, and started on a hunger strike out in front of Parliament there, provincial Parliament. I had two demands. One was that male victims of domestic violence get some sort of treatment, because right now they got nothing. They get, they could go to a homeless shelter for 3 days, and get a little bit of sanctuary there, but no legal aid, no counseling, just like here, you know, into the homeless shelter you go. And by the way, what are they supposed to do with their children if they're fleeing an abusive spouse? Leave them behind to suffer more, to suffer more abuse? There's an interesting question. Now the Ontario government spends $142 million plus, I think it's 220 grand total, but $142 million on the shelter industry, and about 83 million of that goes right into the shelters themselves. I believe there's 90 of them or so in Ontario, and the price for a bed per night per person ranges from $90 to $575. Now I might even say that $90 might be a little low for depending, it might be a little low, but I certainly do want to know what the hell's going on for $575 a night. Are they sending him down to Casino Rama for a little party or something? Because really, $575 for a bed doesn't say anything about services, just for a bed for a night. That is a little ridiculous. Are they putting them up at a five-star hotel in downtown Toronto, Ottawa? Where did they get that number from? Now, there's something else that's kind of interesting. 1997 is the first Auditor General's report about this shelter industry in Ontario, and they say that they need to set up standards and criteria. Well, here we are, 2015, and as far as I can see, there's still no standards or criteria. So, it's wide open, and when it's that wide open, the ability or the opportunities for dishonest dealings is right there. And feminists are a greedy lot from my experiences, and they will take as much as if they see an inch, they'll take a fucking mile. So, why do we have that $575 number per night? That's kind of ridiculous. Now there's 600 shelters across Canada, last count that I seen, and the numbers tick out as far as the abuse population. It was for the last general social survey, it was 585,000 men, or 6% of the population, and 601,000 women, or 6.4% of the population. Now that 1% difference has remained constant for the last three general social surveys. So there's about 15 to 20 years worth of data there that says that it's been equal for, quite some time. Now, why are we ignoring half, the issues that half the human race face? And they are 50% of the domestically abused population. Like I said, I point to those numbers: 6% of men, 6.4% of women. There's been a 1% difference for since they started studying this stuff in Canada. It really is a nasty bit of business, and it is a business, and it's a business for profit. I'm also going to point to Erin Pittsey's story, and her experiences. The woman who opened up the first abused women's shelter in Cheswick, England, I believe it was either 1971 or 1974, one of those 2 years. And her experiences were quite an eye opener. And if you do not know who she is, look her up. Look up her, read about her story, her experiences. They are absolutely atrocious. Make no mistake about it, it's all about the money.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of hers. What she did was amazing, and you know, there was Mark Ruffalo had this thing recently where he was on Tumblr complaining about all the haters of feminism, and it's like, well, when you say that you hate feminism, you're saying that you hate all the abuse shelters that are out there that was started by feminists. And I'm like, yeah, but the first one, or one of the first one, was started by a non-feminist. Hell, second wave feminists wasn't even fully realized when Erin Pizzey started her shelter. And she got you know, into it with feminists, that she saw an opportunity to expand, and they forced her out of it because she dared to say that men deserved a shelter. And she was forced to leave her country because she was in Europe, I believe UK specifically, and she was forced to flee because of the constant looking over her shoulder, the threats. I think her dog was injured, and she now lives in the United States, all because she said men deserve a shelter.
Yeah, and she also points out another interesting thing, and I'm well aware of this, that she had no problems getting donations when it was, for women's abuse shelters. But as soon as she, kind of said, all right, let's help out the male victims, the people who were, more than willing to drop a few dimes down for women's abuse shelters, all of a sudden their pockets, became empty. They grew alligator arms. They couldn't reach into their pockets to drop a few dimes down for to help men. That's her experiences. I'm going to talk about just touch upon the Center for Men and their Families located at 152 Carlton Avenue, downtown Toronto. There, um, just to try and get a little bit of funding for them. It's like pulling teeth, and it's rare as hen's teeth. There, I've put in a lot of I've put in stuff for auction for them. I've put in geez, that whole 75 walk, I pushed donations to go towards them, because they do have charity status, and they are the only organization that I'm aware of in Ontario that is actually, trying to address the issues that men face. So it's really difficult just to find a little bit of compassion for men, and really I do not know why. They're half the human race. They deserve equal, compassion, consideration, and care and empathy. Why are we just kind of ignoring them? And really, that kind of, leads me to ask the question: is that how much of a factor does that play into the suicide rates?
I bet you if we started taking care of men, if we gave them a place to go when they had financial troubles, if they were victims of domestic abuse, victims of rape, if we started caring for the men that go off to war and come back and are injured and need medical services, if they get post traumatic stress disorder, if we started caring for men the way we cared for women, I bet that the rate of suicide would drop 50% at the very
There's
least.
that does hold water. And there's an interesting study that was done in Scotland or Wales, and it traced suicide rates from like 18, I don't know, 18. I'm going to say 1887 to like 2000, and in the 1960s range there, the suicide rates were 1.5 women or 1.5 men to 1 woman. So the suicide rates, there was parity before we started getting this nasty, virulent, violent patriarchy theory coming out that all men are evil bastards and deserve nothing. And it's really a hateful theory. And really, feminists, are you comfortable with them saying that all your male relatives, all your male ancestors, are nothing more than did nothing more than rape and oppress all your female ancestors? I'm sorry, but you know what? I don't buy into that. No way in hell. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to call you a bunch of fucking liars for profit.
Yeah, so this is all great conversation, but we do have a survey, so let's go ahead and move on with that. Um, so vast majority disagree that women are less capable of violence than men. And we've kind of talked about that already, of the case about the woman who hired a hitman. But, I mean, we see all sorts of things about how women have a disregard for men's lives. And not even just about the donations of abuse shelters and, claiming that men can't be raped, but, there was Sharon Osbourne on the talk who's laughing about a man's penis being cut off and put into the garbage disposal or a blender or whatever, and she's just sitting there laughing about it. And I'm sorry, but that's just sociopathic behavior right there. The fact that women are very capable of killing. What's up?
Notice how she had red hair in that interview too.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to point to Nina Sarkeesian's taking on the red hair too. What is it with these red-haired feminists? They seem to have show depraved indifference and sociopathic behavior, psychopathic behavior. There's that's an interesting kind of coincidence. Is all I'm going to say. Is red the new fucking well? I'm going to say red always, kind of signified the devil back, in biblical kind of things. So, maybe there is something to that.
Well, when I used to do tech support in my former life, I always had people call in and it's like, yeah, the modem has a red light. Is that a good thing? And I would always put them on mute real quick. And I'm like, when in the history of man has a red light been a good thing? And I'm kind of feeling it's like, when in the history of man has red hair been a good thing?
Well, Jessica Rabbit, she was kind of hot, but then again, she was an animated character, so I don't know.
But I do love the red-haired chicks out there, all the gingers. I love you, unless you're batshit crazy. I hate you.
Yeah, actually, I don't want to slam the gingers, even though they're soulless fuckers. I mean, whoops, did that slip? Whoops, my bad. Hey, Sage, how you making out? I see Zen for Men's doing good.
Yeah, gotta love the sage. All right, so we've kind of touched on this, but let's go ahead and touch on it a little bit more. Men and boys who are forced into sex are lucky. Over 90%, it's pretty much 99%, strongly disagree with that.
Except for Mary Koss.
Yeah. Because that's something that I've heard feminists say, that, men and boys can't be raped because they want sex. Or that if a man has an erection, he wanted sex.
So does that mean if a woman gets wet that, it's not rape too? Hey, let's apply that, let's apply that logic right across the board and equally. I got a problem with that because, there is physical responses that people have no control over.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same thing right there. And yet it's further justification that men cannot be raped. So let's go ahead and move on from that. By the way, Candy Jam, good to see you again. She's brunette, so, we love the brunettes, we love the blondes, we love the gingers. We love you, Candy. All right. So women are better parents than men. This was a little bit parody here, but we had the vast majority say that they disagree with that, but we had about 13% that was indifferent and one person who strongly agrees with that statement.
Well, if your criteria is that women are better parents than men at producing, breast milk, then I'd have to agree. But other than that, I call bullshit.
That's actually funny. I've never heard that. Yeah, it is bullshit. I mean, women are as capable of abuse than men are. In fact, there's a lot of suggestion. There was research done where they put like tape recorders in women's purse just to kind of see how they do things, how they interact with their children, and they found that mothers were more likely to be abusive to their sons than their daughters. That any little indiscretion of behavior, and they would hit their children. Maybe slap them on the arm, give them a little spanking to things that are a lot more severe, but the comparison to their daughters, they would seem to tolerate it a lot more.
It's quite possible. I'm not aware of that study, but I'd like to see it and and take a look at it, and like it is possible.
So, Cyril, good to see you. And yes, I do love everyone. I'm kind of a whore like that, or a slut, because whores do it for the money. Candy says, "Oh, I can without a doubt weigh in on the women being better parents. My mom is an unmedicated bipolar from 11 to 17, and I was my sibling's primary caregiver." So, are you saying that? Well, I'm having a little trouble with this. Are you saying that women can be bad because your mother was, unmedicated bipolar? Is that what you're going with, Candy? I think there's like a few second delay, so I'll let her respond and then I'll read her response from that. So let's go on to all men are rapists unless taught otherwise. Vast majority disagree with that. I hate that. I hate when women feminists say that we have to teach men not to rape.
Well, then by the same token, we have to teach women not to rape too, and that would mean that all women are potential rapists unless taught otherwise. Oh, did I just hear a collective whine? Too bad, feminists. You don't like equality? Fucking too fucking bad.
I mean, it's like saying we don't necessarily teach men not to commit other crimes. We teach them right from wrong, but we teach them that you have to be concerned about other people and their feelings, and you know robbing and stealing is bad, but we don't specifically tell them not to do these things, because we pick up on these things, especially in how we interact with each other. And this whole idea that we have to teach men not to rape, and that if we don't do that, then they're going to rape, which also ignore, and you're talking about equality for men and women. I mean, we're not telling women not to rape, and for the most part, they don't. But there are female rapists out there. And the one counter argument I have to that discussion is, you can go ahead and teach men all you want not to rape. It's not going to solve anything. It's not going to make a difference at all, because people who rape don't care about the law. It's not like no one told them not to rape. But the other kicker is that a study has been done that showed that 88% of male rapists were themselves raped as a child by a female perpetrator. So if we want to stop women from being raped, we need to tell women to stop raping children.
You know what? You're absolutely right. It's criminals will be criminals, okay? And it doesn't matter. We tell murderers don't murder. Is that working? No. We tell thieves don't thief. Don't steal things. Did that work? No. So the argument is moronic. It does nothing except for paint half the human race as villains, and the other half as innocent, individuals, and that's a lie. My personal take on it is that 5% of the population, regardless on whether they stand to pee or squat to pee, are just fucking assholes, and a certain subset of that 5% are real nasty fuckers, and they will commit violent crimes. And it doesn't matter, again, stand to pee or squat to pee.
So Candy has responded. She states, I think it's a midway thing that women are just as capable of being bad. I 100% agree with that. Her mother was a drunk and was always out to get them. But in the same sense, I, as a woman, was a better parent as I was there for my siblings. I mean, compared with your mom, you definitely did. You were a better parent. I don't think that we should divide parenting among genders. It's all about who has the courage, the tenacity, the sense of duty to do the right thing. And that's where we should be making the division, not along gender or race, but on who has the sensibility to do the right thing. And I have a lot of respect for you, Candy, that you were able to do the thing that your mother couldn't.
I would just like to ask Candy, and if this is too personal, she can just tell me to fuck off and not a problem. I would just like to ask, where was her father? What had, what kind of went on there? Was he involved at all? Was he kind of tossed out and removed from the family unit? And again, if she doesn't want to answer that, I can understand that. That's a personal question, and I don't want to pry. But I think that possibly it's a pertinent question.
Okay, and while we wait for her to answer that, we'll go ahead and move on here. Boys interested in fields associated with women are generally met with encouragement from their parents, the media, and schools. And a majority of the people disagreed with this. About 19% were in the middle. What are your thoughts, Dan?
I would, yeah, you know what? I would kind of, I would say that, yeah, I do kind of agree with it a little bit. Probably I'd fit right in there in the middle, about that 19%. And the reason why I would say that, it's encouraged, well, they're starting to frickin' teach gender studies at the high school level in Canada, so they're really pushing it. And there's, I don't know how to say it, but kind of like an undercurrent or an underlying kind of idea that, hey, if you become a male feminist, then you're going to be loved by women because you love and respect women, and we all know that's just a bloody lie. It has nothing to do with loving and respecting women. It has to do with money and treating women like eternal toddlers, not responsible for their fucking choices.
Well, I'm kind of in the disagreement camp that boys are given encouragement to be in fields that are associated with women because with there are certain fields like men are basically discouraged to be teachers because there's the whole idea that male teachers will rape their students. Um, it goes even so far as like they won't put a child next to a single man on an airplane because they're afraid that something will happen. And that has nothing to do with careers, but it's kind of this mentality that we want to prevent men from taking certain jobs because there's the possibility that they could do something bad. And the most of the careers that are like that are things that are associated with women, such as social work or teaching. So I would kind of maybe put a 2 on this, maybe a 3. That's somewhere in the middle. Most other careers that are associated with women, like nursing, it's not so bad. Society still kind of looks down on it. Being a stewardess on the airplane, well, it's generally more accepted, but there still are careers out there where men are looked at as pedophiles, and they shouldn't be a teacher. And it's just a recipe for disaster, and it's just sick, in my opinion.
Um, you touched upon something interesting that I've got a little bit of experience with. Um, Nursing, male nurses. I talked to a nursing union shop steward, and she told me that the amount of sexual harassment that male nurses put up with, and by sexual harassment, I mean that literally, like, hey cutie, why don't you come on over here? I think I need something checked underneath my gown. You know what I mean? She was saying that the amount of sexual harassment that male nurses put up with is quite astounding, and it's really an unknown, an unrecognized situation.
That doesn't surprise me, in all honesty. There was a report, I guess it was on 2020, and my mom works in the medical field, so she kind of confirmed this with me. But nurses are very nasty to each other. It's very competitive, and they can be quite bad to each other. So it makes me wonder how male nurses fit in with that. That there's probably a lot of women that take out a lot on male nurses.
Yeah, I just noticed that Candy Jam has responded,
Yeah,
and
I was going to read that in just a moment.
go ahead then.
Well, first I want to give the comment by Cyril FM. I'm sorry, I don't know really know how to say your name, but she said that she didn't state it anywhere, but she was happy to see that you didn't die, Dan. That the world is better with you in it, or at least the causes, and I agree with that as well. Candy
Well,
did.
I
Go ahead.
didn't I didn't think that they were gonna let me die on Queens Park steps anyways. That'd be kind of really. I put them in a nasty no-win situation, and if I had been able to push it, right to the a little bit longer, I think we would have seen some better results. But they either had to acquiesce to my requests, and my requests were not all that far out there, and I did have some fallback positions, but I wasn't able to put them through. The two positions were, funding for, men's abuse services and shelters, and the other is that, section 300, defamatory libel, which is a criminal code violation in Canada, would be upheld. And the reason why I want that section upheld is because if you Google my name, it comes up with some nasty, nasty bits of libel and horse shit. And there are some individuals in Canada that just feel that they have free reign to walk all over and trample all over my name and lie about my positions and stuff. What they don't really kind of realize is that there's a really an innocent individual at the University of Saskatchewan there, I believe it is, with the same name as me. Dan, he has Dan Parents as well. And so they're not only are they screwing me, they're also screwing some innocent people as well. And the government of Canada is fine with that. Now, upholding that law would stop a lot of the censoring and quieting of the message that men matter and they have issues that need to be addressed. And that's it's kind of, I guess, the way feminism likes it. Now, I realized that the shelter situation there, I realized that they weren't going to be able to, fulfill that right away. My fallback position was that the heads of the three major parties, political parties in Canada, would just sign an agreement saying that they're going to work on it. But again, I wasn't able to push the issue as long as I wanted to, and it just kind of fizzled out there, and that's okay. We still made some good ground. We got information out on the, I don't know, 3 radio stations. Did an incredible interview, and there was an incredible written piece by Lizzie, the gamer, not your shield woman. Incredible person. I'm so glad that she's landed on her feet in a better position than the one that she got harassed out of. and I wish her all the best. And that is a true human being with an incredible spine. Um, that is awesome.
And we have Candy here with us. She wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit more directly to Dan. So um, I'll go ahead and let you discuss what you wanted to.
Uh, can I just see? Am I able to be heard?
I can
Yes,
hear
we
you
can hear
fine.
you.
Okay, good, because my mic is evil, and I was like, are you gonna work for me for once? But yeah, no, you were just curious about my father's situation. Me and my brother, we share the same father. However, my two sisters, they share different fathers. And this always kind of created a very awkward family time because you have two with one and two with two different, and a lot of times the fathers did not actually get along. My youngest sister, Madison's father, Clyde, was a hard headed conservative Texan. My father is a Boston Puerto Rican man, and they would butt heads. And this is not including the other men my mother had in my life. So we never exactly had a very strong male presence, but my father, despite not being the father to the other two, would do his best to try and give them some form of guidance where they weren't getting it from their own fathers.
That's that. I'm so that is a nasty situation. I'll say, and I can sympathize with it. There was some
Let
parental
me stop you there.
alienation.
Let me stop you there, Dan. Candy, when you're not speaking, can you go ahead and put on mute?
Oh, yes, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, that there was a little parental alienation that went on with my family as well. Um, it didn't really take with me, but it did take with my little brother. To the point where my dad and him didn't speak for 10 years, and it came to my dad being on, in his deathbed, geez, about 7 days away from his death, when I told my little brother, hey, you better get up there and you better say hi, make your peace with dad. Um, I will remember what the stepsister had to say about that. Geez, why is your brother, why is your brother bothering now? He's, hasn't spoken to his dad in 10 years. And I'm just like thinking to myself, aren't you just a nasty fucking bitch? That's his biological son. That was his last biological son. And if they want to make peace, before he dies, then fucking what right do you got to throw in your goddamn 2 cents? You were the step monster's daughter, and I call her the step monster for a very good reason. She had me and she had my dad sign a new will within 48 hours of his death. He was all morphined up due to cancer, palliative care cancer treatment, and she had him sign a new will that wrote me and my little brother out of the will, and also removed my dad's brother as co-executor of the will. So she was a monster, but at the end of the day, all she got was money. It'll never love her back. It might keep her warm in the winter, but it'll never love her back, and it'll never respect her. And it just will. She probably pissed it away like she did, all kinds of other monies. So I can sympathize with some of your situation there, Elena, as well.
Are we free to call you that, or do you prefer Candy?
I prefer Candy as it is the alias I go by more, but I do understand I'm not very good at the whole Google Plus thing. So I have to figure out how to change my name, and I'm still working on it. But yes, Elena is fine for right now. I don't particular my mine.
Okay, I will go Candy from now on. So sorry.
No worries, no problem at all. It's just the one I go by online.
Was there anything more you wanted to say on that issue? Because I invite you to stay on while we discuss these others, and you can give your input on them.
Yeah, I just wanted to input a little bit on the whole better parent thing. It's something that I really, really noticed with like media coverage. If you see media coverage on like a father who's abused a child, it's more extensively that monster. Where if a woman has abused her child, killed her child, they seem to always try to figure out what happened in this person's life that made them do this to their child. And I always wonder, well, why is that any different if a man does it? If a man abuses a child, why is it somehow different from when a woman does it? Like, what happens if the man did have an abusive childhood himself? How is that somehow different from a woman? And I'm like, that kind of privilege always kind of made me kind of confused. For example, my father, his work when he was married to my mother was he worked with sex offender youth boys. And we weren't allowed to go to the secondary house that he stayed in with these young men because of the obvious issues. But he would always work with these kids regardless of what they had done. But he was never allowed to work with female sex offender youth. And it always kind of made me kind of confused. I was like, what makes it so different from a male abusing and a female abusing?
That's an interesting situation, and I, I'd like to draw kind of like a little bit of a parallel in the domestic violence industry. They say, no male employees kind of deal, in the women's shelters and, this and that and the other thing. And I can get that to a certain extent. But at what point in time, are these, the female victims, are they going to, be eternally shielded from, interacting with males for the rest of their lives? And I'm not trying to be callous about things, but at some point in time, to be a healthy, kind of productive member of society, they have to be able to interact with men, and vice versa for the domestically abused men. So I don't know where that sweet spot or that answer is, but eventually, to be well-rounded individuals, you cannot, you can't just say, well, I'm going to not interact with half of society, whether that's male or female. So yeah, that sexual kind of assault kind of area is an interesting kind of thing, but I can only draw a parallel to the domestic violence one because that's really where I've got a lot of I'm going to say expertise.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and comment a little bit, and this is completely an observation of mine because I study a lot of psychology, I study a lot of these things, and that's how I came upon this survey, which is amazing. An observation I've taken about domestic violence and rape and all of that is that when a woman gets abused in any sort of way, what's done for her is that she, and not all women are like this, not all women go through this, but it seems especially within the feminist community, is she's a victim, she will be a victim for the rest of her life. And she needs to learn that she has no responsibilities for any of her actions. And I'm not saying that it's her fault that this abuse happened, but there may have been some, thing that she did to escalate it, or maybe it was just a random attack. But that's not even discussed. She's a victim, she always will be a victim, and it's men who are at fault. When a man is a victim of domestic violence or rape, it's always either you perpetrated it in some way. You were responsible for whatever happened to you. Even though it was someone else who did this to you, you're responsible for it. And you have to learn that you are the monster. And I can back this up with a little bit of evidence. Like I said, this is an observation, but I wrote an article called Diffusion of Responsibility on the Honey Badger site. And one of the things I pointed to was the What Would You Do show, where it showed a male abusing a female and how many people would step in and try to stop it. When they reversed the situation, no one cared. And in fact, they talk to a lot of these people. It's like, well, why didn't you step in? Why didn't you do anything? And they're like, well, we figured that he probably deserved it if it was a woman beating him up. And I think this is where our culture is that if a man is being beaten up by a woman, he deserved it. He did something to cause this situation. But the reverse happening, a man beating up a woman, oh my God, we need to protect her. Something bad is happening to her, and we need to shelter her for the rest of her life.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like you go through a traumatic experience. There's that old adage. You got to get back up on that horse again. And I, I've had some really, really interesting experiences with the local police. Including and not limited to threats against my life, threats against threats of physical violence, and still I'll deal with them with some gloves on, some and my chosen form of armor, which is recording devices, but I still will deal with them because the necessity, I have to, and it's not something I really enjoy. My heart rate will race, my palms will get sweaty, I will experience like large anxiety doing it, but I'll do it anyways, regardless. It's the right thing to do. It's not the easy thing to do.
Candy, do you have any thoughts on what I said?
Actually, I kind of do. Something like that kind of makes me think of something in an area that I'm more familiar with, which is the convention scene. A lot of times, we have these panels and such that is called cosplay is not consent, which is pretty much if you're dressed up as a sexy character or whatnot, it does not mean you consent to touching and whatnot. However, it's very slanted toward women. That, oh, you're dressed up as a sexy character as a woman, so you are protected. But if a guy complains about it, it's like, well, you were dressed as Wolverine. Who cares? And in the convention scene itself, we have this very girls will be girls mentality, where girls can pretty much just get away with anything they want. I myself, I'm 4'11", 5 feet at the most, and a lot of times females will come up and lift me up if I'm dressed as a small character, and it will honestly scare me to death. But we have this very, oh, don't worry about it, I'm just having fun, we're both girls, what's the issue? And I feel like that kind of, oh well, it's a woman, that victim like narrative just seeps into just areas where, this would not be consensual if it was a guy doing it to you. Why are you doing it to someone else? So that's where I kind of see it too, where it's more of women can get away with certain things because they have that perpetual victimhood. That, oh, well, you're just a woman, so who really cares? And honestly, as another woman, I don't like it. If I do something wrong, I want to be held responsible for my actions so I can learn from them, not continue on down a path that can harm others.
I'd like to add a little bit more anecdotal stuff, and because of what Candy just said. Now, when I was younger, I used to be able to turn heads, male and female heads,
Hey, that
and
goatee's working for me, man.
yeah, well, it's the feminist kryptonite. It's my feminist kryptonite. That goatee and the beard. It just kind of removes all their power over me. But anyways, um, so when I was younger, I used to turn heads, and I used to date a former penthouse pet, and she was a dancer. And I got no problems with the sex work industry, including dancers, burlesque dancers, strippers, whatever you want to say, peelers. We used to call them peelers because they peel their clothes off, kind of deal. Now, she, had lots of friends within the community, but she also liked to go see the swinging dingalings. Now, she would the one bar that we would go to. They had, the girl dancers up on, on the one floor, and the guy dancers were down on the next level, kind of deal. And she would sit upstairs and we'd watch the girls for a little while. And then she'd say, well, I want to go see the swinging dinglings. Can we go downstairs? And, I'm equal opportunity. Sure, go ahead. Let's go downstairs, whatever. So now, if you ever get the chance to, just go in and look at the difference between the way that the female dancers are treated and protected and the way that the male dancers are treated and not protected. Now I'm gonna go into an example here. So we went downstairs, and I didn't really care. I just kind of just sat and watched what was going on with the women, and that was kind of interesting because they got away with quite a bit. The stuff that they did downstairs to the male dancers would have got them beat up and tossed out if they were a guy doing it to the female dancers. But at one point in time, on the one night, I just, turned to Leah and I just, kind of put my arm around her and pulled her in for a little bit of a kiss. And all of a sudden, the bouncers came running over and they said, "You can't do that here." And I'm like, "The fuck are you talking about here? That's my fucking girlfriend. If we want to kiss, that's our fucking business. Go away." And the guy goes, "No, no, no, you don't understand. The way that you and her look, the crowd is going to take it that it's open season on the male dancers." And I mean, they are literally ripping the clothes off the male dancers, and the women are allowed to do that because, again, they are women. Girls will be girls, sort of deal. Exactly what Candy was pointing out.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next topic here. Candy, I want you to stay because this is really good stuff, and I love the chemistry that the three of us have here. So let's go ahead and discuss the next point. We only got a couple of more for this video. We'll be doing more next week. So, boys who play with toys associated with girls are met with hostility from their parents, the media, and schools. And let me break down these numbers a little bit. Let me catch up here. Where is it? Hold up one moment. I don't think I wrote this one down. Oh, wait. Here we go. Yes, I did. Okay, so 77% agree with this statement. 16% are kind of in the middle, and 7% disagree with this statement. Candy, how about you go first on this one?
Oh, yes, I can completely get in on that as a fan of the very popular recent reboot of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. You cannot believe the hostility female fans have to male fans. I actually did a video on this that I need to remember to fix again because I'm a lazy butt. But female fans have this anger toward anyone who enjoys something that's seen as feminine, like My Little Pony. For example, a ways back, I believe it was about a year and a half ago, a poor young boy who was 11 years old, really loved My Little Pony, actually tried to take his life because of how much he was tormented for enjoying the show. Now, a female fan, who was at the time 17, 16, tried to make it about her, turning it around saying, "Oh, remember when I did that? Nobody cared then." And this hostility just, it explodes all over the place. If any girl likes Avengers or something, it's this big crusade of why is there no Black Widow toys? But if a boy likes My Little Pony, it's ew, get it away. He's gonna taint it for the children. And it blows my mind. I'm just like, why is this such a deal? And this is something that I personally have had experience with. Growing up, I had a lot of shoujo manga, which is girl manga, kind of romance, and my younger brother liked reading it. He liked the cartoon aspect of it. He brought one to school one time and was tormented for it. And that just, it blows my mind. The fact that a young boy is just not allowed to enjoy feminine things, but then he's told that, oh, you need to respect a woman's enjoyment of things, but you're not allowed to enjoy it. And I honestly have no idea why this exists. I don't mean to take up too much time, but one last thing I would love to just pull over is the Steven Universe scandal. I'm not sure if you two know of this show. It's on Cartoon Network called Steven Universe about a young boy who has abilities passed on through his mother, who in fact is an alien that can turn into a gem. The creators of the well-known My Little Pony website, Equestria Daily, was going to make a Steven Universe site for bronies that were starting to get into Steven Universe. Brony is the guy version of a fan. I'm not really all that like concerned with it. I'm just like, whatever. Everyone has their names. But when female fans discovered that the Equestria Daily group was going to be making the sister site, they exploded. Twitter was run over with death threats, get away from it, it's ours, you can't touch it, to the point where the guy felt so threatened by these female fans that he decided not to do it. And so that's something I can definitely agree with. Boys have such hostility for liking female things, and I honestly have no clue why. I just like having new friends who like the same stuff as me. I don't know why it has to be a battlefield. But I'll shut up. Sorry.
I will say talk as much as you want because this is really good stuff. The sharing that we're doing here, this has been more successful than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, talk as much as you want because this is all really good. You know, as far as the bronies, you know, I saw that documentary with John DeLancey about the whole thing, and you know, when I see bronies, because I've tried watching My Little Ponies, I got through the first season, and it's cute. You know, I have nothing against it. I'm not a brony, you know, but when I see that other people are getting something out of it, that men can associate with it and touch on it and feel empowered by it, it gives me a sense of pride that, you know, there can be something out there for everyone. And then it kind of gives me disgust that they're looked down upon because they like something that's girly, that's meant for little girls. And our culture is always like, well, you know, men, there's toxic masculinity, and men do this and men do that. And the one time men are doing something that feminists should be celebrating, and they're still attacked for it. And, you know, to this question itself, I mean, I never really had toys for girls. I mean, occasionally I played with Barbies when, you know, went over to my cousin's house, and, you know, boys will be boys. I mean, it's not like I ever ripped off the heads of them, but I certainly undressed them a lot. I mean, that was the closest thing I got to boobies until, well, I was adult. Yeah, I'm a bit of a weirdo. But, you know, I remember, like, you know, we'd play make pretend, and, you know, I would try to play a female role, and my stepfather was like, boys don't do that. He was like so, you know, homophobic about the idea of me playing a female character because someone had to play it. And, you know, it's unfortunate that we're now coming to a point where men are willing to stand up and say they like something and get criticized for it. Hell, I like the Powerpuff Girls. I like Kim Possible. And I shouldn't be afraid to say that out loud. I'm really not, but there is certainly this expectation that there's going to be a feminist to jump all over me and say that I'm appropriating her love of girl things because I'm a guy. Dan, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, I kind of missed out on most of the cartoon comic generation, things that you guys are talking about. But as far as my life experience goes, well, I love to cook. Okay, get the. I'll tell you right now, feminists, get the fuck out of my kitchen. Okay, I want in the kitchen. I wouldn't trust you to make me a goddamn sandwich if I asked you, and I would never ask you. Trust me. Now, how did I learn how to cook? From my grandmother. My Nona was an amazing cook, and I learned from her, and she, you know, she fostered that love of cooking in me. Now, on top of that, my father did a lot of cooking as well, and, you know, so I learned how to barbecue from him, and I love to cook, and I still love to cook. I don't have any, culinary arts degrees, but I can whip up a mean meal out of, from scratch. The largest serving I've done is, sitting for at least 10 or 12 people. It was Thanksgiving dinner. So, yeah, I get no problem saying, as far as, what traditionalism says, that's, kind of, the old feminist running meme is that, back in the kitchen, right? Get the fuck out of my kitchen. Okay, it's my kitchen. It's not fucking. It's not the woman of, the woman I'm seeing's kitchen. It's my fucking kitchen. All right, and there's a reason why. It's because I like to cook. I'm a man who likes to cook. Oh my God, heaven fucking forbid. That's about all I got to say on that, because that's what my life experiences are on that.
Well, I also love to cook. I learned to cook from watching my mom and watching other people, but personally, women, you're welcome to watch me cook. I like when people watch me cook, so I'm kind of nutty that way, but I definitely feel your sentiment. I love to cook. Yes, it's traditionally a woman's thing, but you know what? I love it. I love the science behind it. I love everything I can, and I love cooking for other people. So I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. Anything you want to comment on that, Candy?
I've never seen cooking as a gendered thing. My father was always home more than my mother, who, ironically enough, was a social worker. People always find that kind of funny when they figure out what kind of person my mother was. But my father was the main cook in our house, and when people got mad about the whole, I'm sure you guys know of that, oh, go make me a sandwich, and women would get all butthurt about it. I was like, what? One girl in school had actually been like, "Oh, how disgusting, man!" I was like, well, why are you in the kitchen if you can't handle the fire?" And that was actually the first time I got reprimanded by my teacher. Apparently, I had insulted her with that. But I honestly have never seen cooking as a gendered thing because I grew up with a father who did most of the cooking. He still does most of the cooking. I'm a great cook. I just can't handle being standing on my feet too long because I was born with a disability. Just makes my bones pretty frail. So standing really long bugs me, and so during college when I stayed with my father, he'd always do all of the cooking, and most of the men in my on my father's side do a lot of cooking. And I've never really seen it as a gendered thing, but I can see where that stigma would have occurred, especially in earlier years before geekdom, which is pretty much, I kind of feel like, the battleground for boys versus girls these days. Like, it's very much a, I don't know why, but a lot of people seem to take geekiness as boys versus girls more, but I can see where household things beforehand would have been the battleground between the sexes. And I really don't see why it needs to be that. I think people should just be able to enjoy themselves, not be conformed to be, oh, you have to be this or you have to be that. I'm like, why can't people just be themselves and find other people that enjoy that about them?
I'm just going to point out that I am 46 years old, and I really, really, really hate to fucking admit this, but I had Pong. Okay, that was our computer back in the day. All right, so um, I was just born a little bit before tech stuff kind of really takes off, and so I missed that. Okay, just because of the age that I was in. But back in those days, the kitchen was seen as the woman's realm, the woman's, she was the queen of that castle.
All right, so very well said, everyone. Let's go ahead and move on. Talking about academic fields. Academic fields associated with men are better than academic fields associated with women. And the numbers that we see for this is that 59% disagree with this, 27 in the middle, and 14% agree with this. Dan, let's go ahead and start with you on this. What are your thoughts?
Well, okay, well, okay, first, what is an academic field that is associated with men? Well,
Probably
I
STEM
can't think of.
fields like
Well, yeah, but okay. We have fields where men have an interest, more, a predominant interest in them. But are they necessarily, associated with, like I don't see, I don't see any fields being, predominant, or, male or female. Um, are there some differences possibly in the biological makeup of our brains that, kind of lends to one side or the, one field or another? I believe that there is. There's a lot of evidence that kind of proves, kind of points to that. But I really, I don't see anything, really saying that one's better than the other. Now, all that being said, the STEM fields, there are a lot of men that go into that, and are STEM fields in general kind of looked at, a little as a little bit more important? I don't know. Maybe engineering is kind of important. Like it only involves, like, everything from, when you wake up in the morning and how you cook your eggs on your stove and stuff like that, to the car you drive, to the bridge you drive over, all that stuff. Then there's the, biology, kind of chemical, fields there. Yeah, they're kind of important as well. The maths, these are things that are, they're important, and, by all means, ladies, get in there, choose them. But what seems to be happening is that the the that feminists will take gender studies, and in male and female, they'll take gender studies and say, oh, wait a minute here, they're not respected as much as, something that is concrete, something that actually builds society. And that is really, that's really just a red herring as far as I'm concerned. There, women are more than welcome. And I'm going to point to Shirtgate there. My God, the guy lands a, what's his name? Dr. Matt Taylor, I believe his name was, lands a satellite on a comet traveling, hundreds of thousands of fucking miles an hour through space, hundreds of thousands of miles away. And what do the feminists do? They pick on a shirt that was made by a woman and gifted to him by that woman. The insanity is just, it's right off the deep end as far as I'm concerned.
And you can buy that shirt by Erin. God, no, I just had her name, but I think it's like Erin Preisman. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. She's not paying me for this. I just really like her shirts and really want one. Candy, now I want to hear what you have to say, but I want to extend this just a little bit also to cosplay, and if there's any sort of indiscrepancies with men wanting to do cosplay versus women, and also academic fields as well.
Yeah, sure. I can apply it to a story that just happened recently. That a nursing student who is suing her school for not giving her enough time. That is the very problem there. A lot of women are seeking work that is not going to be too hard on them because many women still feel the need to take time for themselves, whereas men will work and work and work because it's how they provide. It's very much ingrained in our biology. For example, you have my father, who is at this time a medical courier. He delivers medications to homes, hospitals, nursing homes, pretty much anywhere that they would need medications and med carts and so on. However, he works the most out of most of the drivers as the head driver, including some female drivers who only work part-time. And this is very shown to even myself. I personally am an illustrator by trade, but that is more due to the fact that I know my own limitations. I know I would not be able to do a job that I need to be on my feet all day. So when you apply those different aspects of person's body, their view sets, a lot of women are going to choose easier jobs like teaching, nursing, but in the case of that nursing student, she was asking for more time and so on, but it was very strange because from what I was learning is that she was a very anxious person and she I'm not sure if she was diagnosed with something, but I was kind of like, I'm sorry, but I don't want you as a nurse. If you're a very anxious person, you should not be going into a job like nursing or where you need to deal with a lot of blood, a lot of anxiety if you can't handle it. And I think that's like where the school was coming from, that no, she wasn't failing because they weren't giving her enough time. She just was in the worst kind of situation that she put upon herself. I feel that men in general are going to go for something harder, where women are going to go for something that's not going to take as much time, that they can still take time for themselves. Actually, in cosplay, there is something much like that. Women are seen as the bigger prey, well, prey, the bigger people in it. Men's cosplays, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, well, it's just a blocky mess." Though men do a lot more armor, do a lot more shirtless stuff because they can get away with it, where women are going to do more craftsmanship and, let's see, prop making. A lot of men do. You have women who will do hair, wigs. Sorry, they'll style up the wigs for people and so on. But men's cosplays are always somewhat seen as lesser, because that stigma of, oh, well, sewing, that's a woman's thing, so women automatically are the go-to. In fact, for the show back in 2012, 2013, Heroes of Cosplay, they only had, throughout the 2 seasons, they only had 3 male contestants, because the producers saw it as, men are just going to do some big bulky armor, who cares? And that, I kind of feel like that applies to fields, because men are not going to be seen as into theater, acting, and so on, which is something that cosplayers would want to do by natural if they're at the convention and they want to be seen as in the character. So I feel like that's where a lot of this is coming from, and especially in cosplay. Men aren't going to be seen as into sewing, into craftsmanship, and when a woman, for example, someone like Jessica Negri, who's very well known for her sexual cosplays, she's going to be seen far more than someone like Harley's Joker, who does an amazing Joker from Batman, but she's more well known than he is, despite the fact that he puts the very facial expressions together, does an incredible makeup, everything. He's not going to be seen as much as her, because cosplay is going to be seen as more of a woman's field.
Well, as far as my take on all of this, and I'm just going to be real brief, there's no such thing as better fields between men and women. There are fields that are open that serve different functions within our society. Yeah, we need engineers to build bridges and put satellites in space. You know, one of my good friends, Mercedes Carrera, she was an engineer. She worked with satellites. She worked with television stuff. You know, I don't care that she's a woman. I just care if she can do the work. And that's all I really care about. If you're going to be a nurse, you're going to be saving lives. You're going to be around blood and, you know, all sorts of other things that I don't want to think about. But you're going to be responsible for other people's lives. Whatever you decide to do, but I don't really look at it as a nurse is superior to an engineer or vice versa. These serve different functions in our lives, in our society, and we need people to do those jobs. And if you're a female and you happen to want to pick nursing, I'm not going to look at it as, oh, well, you know, you're a woman, so that's naturally what you want to do. I'm going to look at you with respect. So long as you are a hardworking person and you do everything you can in your job, so be it. And if you're a woman who wants to do engineering, if you got the aptitude for it, if you got the heart and the desire to do as great of a job as you can, kudos. But the idea of separating associated fields between men and women and saying that one is better than the other because one is for men and the other's for women, horseshit, honestly. All right.
You know what? I want to add in one last thing. Just do what Henry David Thoreau said. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. Okay, so if man or woman, you want to be an engineer, go for it. Man or woman, you want to be a nurse, go for it.
All right, so let's go to our next topic. Only girls suffer from eating disorders. And as you can see, the vast majority disagree with this. Dan, given your recent experience, I'll go ahead and let you start first on this.
I'm gonna call horseshit on it, for sure. I will add the caveat that there can be a difference in the type of eating disorder, and I'm going to point to the over exercising to get that that He-Man body that guys will get into, to the point where they're that they're doing too much exercising and getting to the bad side of it. Okay. Whereas women tend, there are women that look at thinness as being the ultimate goal of their body dysmorphic kind of look at things. Yeah, it's yeah, they may suffer some slight differences, but yeah, no, it's not only women that suffer it. That's it. That's all I got to say on it. Sorry.
Sorry, I was switching between windows. I couldn't find myself. Candy, would you like to say anything on this?
I do think it is just complete crap. I've known men who have struggled with their weight and eating disorders. It is prevalent in the culture of geek right now too, because we do have a lot of you need to look like this to be able to cosplay, and a lot of men do feel that they need to be this big buff guy to actually just even do a cosplay. And I feel like that's going to be ignored in favor of the heavier girls who want to do something a bit more skimpy, like if they want to do dark stalkers or something, that their struggle is going to be seen much more. So I can definitely say that, yeah, I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that men have it less. I think that we just don't focus on it at barely at all, so their struggles are completely ignored.
So, yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying on this. And lately I've been seeing a lot from the feminist camp that, I just had it. Basically, that a man is not allowed to have a sexual preference. He's not allowed to have a preference on how a girl looks. That all girls have to be attractive to a man, and for him to even say that he prefers a girl who happens to be skinnier over one who happens to be larger, that he is somehow a horrible, horrible person. But the flip side to that is that women will judge men and will prefer a strong and buff man versus one that happens to be fat, and that somehow it is an insult to feminists that a man happens to be anything but their ideal of what a man should be. And this has always existed. I mean, even as a child, I felt like inadequate to women, and I don't anymore. I'm happy with who I am. But I've definitely felt that in my life, that because I wasn't big and strong, I was always this little scrawny child until I grew tall, and then I was a tall, scrawny person, that I could never get the attention of a woman, that no woman would ever look at me like that I'm not this ideal fantasy for women, and that puts a lot of pressure on men. And it's horrible in our society that we pay no attention to that. A girl, drops 2 pounds and we're suddenly concerned that she might have an eating disorder, but a man works himself to death and, possibly gets on steroids because he wants to get that physique, and we don't care. So long as he's a big and powerful man, that's all we want. And it's so sad that our society just doesn't really care that men are capable of eating disorders. Either of you want to comment?
No, I think we're all in agreement that that statement is untrue and horse crap.
Same here.
All right, so rape culture exists. And let me throw out the numbers, and then I want to speak on this one first before I turn it to the two of you. So 71% disagree with this statement, 16% are kind of in the middle, and then 12% agree with this. And I actually agreed with this statement, that rape culture exists. Now, what I think this statement is trying to say is that the feminist narrative of rape culture exists. And I think that's what it's asking, and then the strongly disagreed, yeah, they would be right. The reason why I agree with this statement that rape culture exists is because men being raped is seen as a joke. That if a man is raped, he wanted to be raped. He wanted to have sex. You can't rape a man. Forced to penetrate is not a form of rape. And that there's a false rape culture on top of that. That a man could be accused of rape and later found that he didn't do it and there was no way he could possibly have done it. And his life is ruined by that. In fact, there was, I think it was in Oregon, but a woman stated that there was a guy that looked like a rapist. The guy who raped her, this boy over here looked like him. And his life was turned upside down, that there were certain parts of a campus he wasn't allowed to go to because she could potentially be there. And this affected his work because he worked on campus, and he also lived on campus, and that made things harder for him as well. His whole life turned upside down because he somehow looked like this girl's rapist. And that, to me, is rape culture. The fact that we ignore the suffering of men when it comes to rape, men and boys. So that's why I agree with the statement that rape culture exists. But I understand that it's asking more for, I believe it's asking for the feminist narrative, and the feminist narrative doesn't exist. Which one would you like? Which one of you wants to speak first?
I can hop in if it's all right with Dan.
I'd say it's your turn.
Okay then. I do think that you do have a very big point there. I think also, if I remember correctly, I don't have a source on this, but someone mentioned it to me in passing that rape culture was actually something that was being discussed within the prison systems, because these men and indeed women don't have very much choice in the matter of what's going to happen sexually when they're incarcerated, and that feminists kind of took it and ran with it. Though I do think it does come more from the studies that was done. I forget when, 80s or 90s, I forget quite when, that it was the 1 in 5 where that came from. But I do think that there is a kind of rape hysteria. I mean, for example, the one you were talking about in Oregon, he resembled a rapist that was convicted from her in San Francisco. The man that attacked this woman is in no way near where this took place, but she felt threatened because the dude looked kind of like him. And another example of that is with the mattress girl. She was proven to have lied completely and entirely for an art project. I feel like right now, rape is becoming a fashion statement for a lot of feminists. They'll stand behind Jackie, who, was proven to have lied, that the frat party never happened, that she just made up a story because the, reporter from Rolling Stones was looking for that story. You have the mattress girl who she would say in her interviews, "Oh, I don't feel safe being on campus," when this man was in fact studying abroad. This man was nowhere near. She knew this. She was still friends with him on Facebook. He had already proven his side to the school that he had no interaction with her, that it was started by her, that they had consensual sex on a few occasions, but nothing is done to help these men. I believe it was in the UK, there was a bill that was trying to be passed about hiding the name and location of a rape of someone accused of rape until conviction, because of the mob attacks that would come to these poor people. And feminists fought against it, and it did fall. And I feel like that's where we are. I don't feel it's so much a culture of rape, but I do feel we have this very rape hysteria that makes me think of the Crucible in a way. We're believing without ever looking to what could actually be happening. I actually was designing a T-shirt for a while, but stopped because I was a little nervous of what could happen to me. But it was inspired by Thunderfoot's "Rape on Campus" video, where he put up "Listen and Believe" and had a reenactment of the Crucible girls. And I was going to actually put that on a T-shirt, but my fear was, what's going to happen to me if I actually put this out there? People would probably come at me for designing something that offends them. And I feel like that's where we are. Rape is a fashion statement, and we have a hysteria about it. And that honestly scares me as someone who is trying to go back to campus. I'm honestly terrified of what happens if I say the wrong thing to some girl. I could be accused of something. I could be seen as a rape apologist. I could be attacked. I mean, for example, I've actually had my own little harassment thing with the illustrious Brianna Wu. She was actually at a convention I was volunteering at. I was, in fact, sick that day, so stayed at my grandmother's. And the wonderful liberal lunacy Shannon had put up a thing about her, and she had actually had her Twitter tag in there, and I went, "Oh, her! She was at the con I was volunteering at, and I hadn't been there. Ugh." And Brianna responded with, "I was harassing her by, in fact, being absolutely nowhere near her." And that's where I feel this rape hysteria has gotten to, where you can just wag your finger at somebody and they're accused of rape. And that's pretty much where I stand on it.
Before you go, Dan, not go, but say what you want. I do also want to point out the Duke lacrosse team and how horrific that was. That there were people banging on pots and pans outside of, where they were living, just banging like, "Come out and confess," and that the faculty signed a petition to basically either cancel the lacrosse team or to expel all of these students, and was later found to be innocent of the crime. And all of those faculties that signed that document saying that they should be taken away refused to speak on it. I mean, if you're going to sign your name to something, you better have the courage to be in front of a camera and talk about it, because that was just such an atrocity that happened to these men who were innocent. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. Now, would I say that there's a rape culture? I would agree with you. There isn't a feminist-defined rape culture. And I would agree with Candy there. We have rape hysteria. Now, do we have a version of rape culture? I agree with you again. Yeah. Male says that he's raped. He's laughed. He must have wanted it. He must have enjoyed it. So there's that, yeah, there would be, that if you defined it that way, then yeah, I would agree. Okay. They are told they don't exist. Mary Koss, erases them. From the CDC. And I believe Mary Koss was also the original researcher for that 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 3, 3 out of 5 fucking rape statistic.
Yeah, she was.
So yeah. Now, we have a bad party culture going on as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just going to speak on Canadian numbers, okay? Now, most of what is reported as sexual assaults, and whether or not they are criminal or not, because they use the term unwanted instead of forced, most of them happen between 15 and 25. Now, there's two things that are happening around that age there. Uh, Around 15 years old, that's when young individuals start becoming sexual adults. So there's going to be experimentation, and there's going to be, I'm going to say, unintentional mistakes. And how I'm going to say it and put it out there is that, a 15-year-old may rush from first base to second base. Okay, and not, not intentionally to be forceful or malicious with intent, just, it's body language, and they're not fluent in it. Okay, so they may not pick up on things, and it's an honest mistake. That's what I'm gonna, and those are the only ones that I am going to advocate, or play devil's advocate for. Those who knowingly force, you get no sympathy from me, man or woman. Okay, so that's the first kind of area there. The second kind of area touches upon where you talk about what we were kind of talking about here, is the university college level there. Now, what happens there? Well, they got a taste of sex, and now they're getting a taste of booze. And they're not really good at either by that age. They're still very young individuals. They're young adults making their own way in the world, discovering things in the world. So we have what I would say is a bad party culture. We have a rape culture that is not the feminist defined rape culture. We have a rape culture that says men don't count, men don't matter, male victims don't exist. We have those things going on, but we don't have the feminist defined rape culture. It's a load of horse shit. In 46 years of my life, I can honestly say that I don't know of one person, man or woman, that thinks rape's okay. Honestly says that, not one. So where's this culture? Where's this alleged culture? Now the cases you point out to, well, they go back farther than that, and this is what they're trying to set up. Scottsboro boys, 5 boys, five individuals. One so young, if I remember correctly, they had to put a telephone book underneath his ass to fry him in Old Sparky there. Innocent man, because it comes out later that the two women who decided that they had been raped lied, and they recanted, but it was too late because those boys were already dead. They already, executed. We believe that's what we're going into again. And the feminists don't care. They don't seem to recognize that they're repeating history, right? And it's a shitty, bad historical story that's been told many, many times. From the Scottsboro boys, Emmett Till, to the Duke Lacrosse, the Hofstaffer case, and now we're at UVA. The UVA rape hoax written by Sabrina Erdley, published by Rolling Stone. And Jackie Coakley was the individual there. Her alleged rapist was, I believe, she used the name Haven Monahan or Moynihan or something like that. And it turns out that the picture she used for Haven was, this is all off memory here, but I'm pretty sure. It turns out that he was a picture of some high school student that she went to school with, and that he was like 6 states away at the time of her allegations. Also, you touched upon the fact that there was no, no party at the frat house. Everything else, nothing else, jived. And Rolling Stone, in their idiocy, decided not to fact check. And so they really shot themselves in both foot by believing Jackie and Sabrina Erdley there. Now, an interesting fact was that Sabrina had an interesting tie with another journalist who created stories out of, whole cloth there. Stephen Glass was his name. And there's a little bit of a tie in between them two. And you would think that she would have, seen that, remembered what had happened to Stephen Glass, and, would want to make sure that it doesn't happen to her own career. Well, apparently, I guess she figured that feminism had her back. Well, they did, but society called it out, for the horse shit that it was. Sulkowitz, Little Miss Mattress Girl. My God, the guy was exonerated by the police. So that's beyond a reasonable doubt, burden of proof. Exonerated by the university kangaroo court, which is on a balance of probabilities that he didn't do it, which is a lower standard of proof. And yet, Little Miss Sulkowitz felt entitled to still call him a rapist, even though, and really, the sense of entitlement on this person is absolutely unfathomable. She must have knew that those fucking Facebook messages and emails back and forth really showing that it was, a consensual act and that she was still kind of in love with him and she ends up being the scorned lover, those facts come out and her story starts falling apart. But no, she's got to double down. She's got to still carry that mattress while the rest of society is watching and going, you know what? You're a fucking liar. And I firmly believe that she was just a liar, the scorned lover. All the evidence points to that. The fact that the young man, and I'm not going to name him, the fact that he has been exonerated twice now, and on the lowest burden of proof, is really indicative of this woman's vendetta and vindictiveness towards, towards him, and that she just outs herself as being a scorned lover who didn't get her way, and so thought that she could, jam up an innocent man and make herself popular or famous. I'm also going to point out that one other kind of big liar there, well, a couple of them actually. Lena Dunham, she made some interesting claims about a rapist as well, which kind of come out later on as being false. Matter of fact, I believe that she had to fucking change her book. Also, what Lena Dunham did to her sister? That's kind of really fucking creepy. At 17 years old, sleeping with her sister and bribing her sister to sleep with her. That's really fucking creepy shit. But hey, she's feminist, champion of, rape and rape culture and all this horse shit for profit. So there's another one. I'm also going to point out one other famous feminist liar, and that's Sandra Fluke, who went before the Senate committee and said, $9,000 a year for fucking birth control. Well, simple Google search, pulls up that was a fucking huge lie as well. And her claim was against, I believe it was Georgetown University, and they are, as I understand it, a kind of a quasi-religious university, kind of somewhere in the Christian, kind of scheme of things, Catholic or Protestant or something like that. And, according to their religion, they don't want to cover birth control due to their religious beliefs. And I can respect that. I don't agree with it. So, hence I would not go to that school, but I can respect it. That's their choice. It's, their tuition fees that, are either going to make or break that institution. That's up to them. But Sandra Fluke just kind of inserted herself in there, and it seems like so that she could make another false claim, and it just seems that this is the culture that we're getting into, and letting the minority dictate to the rest of the society, because the last study that I seen, or last straw poll that I seen, only 18% of people identify as feminists. So they are the minority. So, really they are pulling some amazing strings. They pretty much got the best propaganda machine going. And so, this rape culture that I put forth is just propaganda. It's a lie for profit. But if you really want to see what rape culture is, just start looking at the male victims and who, come out and say, hey, I was a victim. Well, the first thing that comes out of you must have enjoyed it. Adele Mercier, they just love fucking sex. That's it. Right there. Feminist philosophy professor and university, and her take on male victims of sexual abuse. They must have loved it. They must have enjoyed it. So there's the real rape culture. Sorry, I'm a little long-winded on that stuff.
No, it's something that all of us should be really angry about. And as far as the false rape stuff, feminists should be all over this issue. They should be tar and feathering any woman who gives a false rape accusation. They should be livid because it takes away from actual victims. And what do feminists do? They celebrate this with the girl walking around with a mattress around the campus. They're like, well, yeah, she had a false rape accusation, but she's raising awareness. And I want to bitch slap anyone who says something like that. And I won't, because I'll go to jail, because that's what happens. But honestly, she's not raising awareness. She's being celebrated for lying, for trying to destroy someone's life, for taking away what it means to be raped. And I agree with you, Candy. It's becoming a fashion statement. Is there anything you want to add to this, Candy?
Yeah, I actually wanted to step in a bit on the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones didn't just not look up like her story. She told them not to. She said, "Oh, I won't help out if you look it up. You're not allowed to check on my story." Like, that was her entire thing. She didn't want them to look it up because she knew it was bullshit. Um, but yeah, with Lena Dunham, her thing is in her freaking story. Like, that's what scares me. She wrote about it. She even wrote, I'm not even kidding here, her entire statement was, anything that a sexual predator would do, I was trying. She literally compared herself to a sexual predator, and she's still successful. And it blows my mind because it's like, here we are in particular right now with the Josh Duggar thing. He was proven to have molested children. They covered it up, and his family's show is being taken off air. It's being discussed if they're going to cancel it, what's going to happen, what things need to be done for his children, the fact that his wife knows, all of that. But Lena Dunham can pretty much write in her story, "Hey, I was a total sexual predator, but who cares? I'm a feminist, ha ha ha." She even made up a rape herself. She claimed a man in the Young Republic's party, I believe it was, had raped her. This was proven to be a lie. She said, "Lol, lol, lol, I don't care what cis white Republican men think about me." And it just blows my mind because here is this absolutely disgusting person, but she can get away with it because she identifies as a woman and identifies as a feminist. And it just creeps me out that, my own sex, well, not really my sex, but my gender identity can be just twisted into this, "Oh, I'm not responsible for anything I do," and it's creepy and just disgusting. And I get shivers over it because I'm just like, ew, gross. But yeah, I just wanted to put in about that because Lena Dunham and the Mattress Girl are huge hot topics in my circles on Tumblr. I have a kind of secret spy Tumblr because if you just come out right and say that you don't support feminism, they'll dox you. So I research it. I go into the tags and figure stuff out. And Lena Dunham is a huge hot topic on there because you have half of Tumblr defending her and the other half going, "Are you insane? This is a very creepy person." She also, I don't know if people know this, she actually outed her sister as a lesbian without her sister's consent because she didn't like that her sister was becoming her own person and wasn't needing her anymore. So, yeah, Lena Dunham. There needs to be a history of on that person because I don't even want to know what kind of stories is going on there, but it would probably make a very fascinating documentary.
and probably be celebrated by feminists of saying this is what all women should do. Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on. Um, as we can see, there's just like a lot of great conversation to be had of this. So this takes into a different direction. We can see the vast majority disagree with this, but men and boys cannot be victims of sexism. Dan, I believe it's your turn.
Oh, what? Wait a minute here. You mean that I get to go first instead of Candy? Oh, just poking fun. Um, absolutely fucking.
Oh, right. I forgot you're a man. Candy, you go first. No, I'm just kidding.
um, absolutely horseshit. Um, hey, when I was the victim of domestic abuse, I was told, "Suck it up. We don't intend to enforce the law." I bet you, I'd be willing to bet my eye teeth that those words were never uttered to a woman in the last 20 years in Canada. Um, what else? Affirmative action. Sorry, you're a penis owner. Can't fucking hire you. We need to fill that quota up. Despite there being despite being hired on merit, instead of what's between what sex you're born. There's another hot button issue there. What else? Male victims of sexual assault. Oh, sorry, you must have enjoyed it. You can't be raped. You're a guy. Sorry. Horse shit again. Yeah. So the statement is just it's good to see that basically 95% of the population are calling that calling it horse shit.
But just to point out, 6 people strongly agreed with that statement. Candy, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just absolute crap. I mean, just take example, and again, and in cosplay, men could be groped, sexually assaulted pretty much. I knew a guy who did a popular character from an anime. We call it the swimming anime. It's pretty much every fangirl's dream. Bunch of guys in tight little swimming attire, being all muscular. And I knew a guy who actually cosplayed it at a convention up here in the East. And he was groped in the elevator. And when he turned to be like, "Excuse me, whoa, what are you doing?" She was like, "Ah, you're a guy. You're supposed to like this." I believe that's just sexism. He's just supposed to deal with it. And another thing I wanted to bring up was there's this actual, it's a blurb. I'm not really sure what you call them. It's like the infomercials or something. It was depicting a boy being told his entire life, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry." And then when it ended, it showed him beating a woman, and it ended with, "Because you might actually hurt a girl." And I was like, that is so sexist. Fuck your problems because you might hurt this poor girl at some point. And I'm like, how is that okay? Men just have this absolute, we're not allowed to be open with our feelings. We're not allowed to be hurt. We're not allowed to deal with issues because we're supposed to be big and tough, because otherwise, if we show any form of weakness, we might hurt a woman. And that's what I really think sexism is. It's this absolute, nope, you can't have this because we decided that we're more important. And another thing is, I'm not sure if you guys have known of this, but the big misandrist movement on like Tumblr, even Twitter, where ha ha ha, boys suck, and you have the male tear cups and such, and I'm like, how is that not sexist? If you turned around and put female tears and I bathe and white girl tears, well, actually no, actually white girls are not allowed to feel hurt at all these days, according to Tumblr. But if it said female tears, women of color, ha, tearing up, that would be attacked as sexist and a lot of times racist. But if a guy is hurt, if a guy is, hurt by the kill all men movements and hashtags, they're just supposed to deal with it. And I'm like, sexism is a two-way street. You can't just say that is sexist toward me, but I'm allowed to turn around and do the same thing to some poor guy because he also has issues, like man spreading. Biologically, men have smaller pelvic bones, and they need to be able to sit comfortably on trains and such. But we had that YouTube personality who actually went on trains and would demand of these poor men, why are you sitting like that? And I'm like, how is that not invading someone's space? They're just sitting comfortably on a train. So I do think that sexism is very much a problem for men, and I kind of feel like sometimes it's more a problem for men than it is for women, because if something sexist against a woman happens, it gets national news. Something happens to a man, it's shrugged off or it's laughed at. And I'm like, if we want to have any form of equality, we need to recognize that one identity, gender, such is not always going to have all the issues, especially if you're going to ignore the mounting issues that men go through. So that's the way I see it.
So, the whole thing with Mel Tears cups and all of that, and Jessica Valenti wearing a sweater saying, I bathe in Mel Tears. Well, Mel Tears is slang for semen. So, seeing Jessica Valenti say that she bathes in male tears, she is one very kinky girl. But you're both perfectly right. I don't think there's really anything that I can add to this. But the whole kill all men and the misandry movement, Time magazine ran an article on that that's saying that misandry shouldn't be taken seriously, and it was an inside joke for feminists. And when a woman hates a man, it should be taken as a joke. And even feminists have said that kill all men is just a joke. It's a double standard, and that's all it is. And, you should be careful with a statement like that, because it was I think Valerie Solanas, who wrote the Scum Manifesto, that said that the way for society to progress is to kill 90% of the male population. That sounds like kill all men to me. Dan, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I just want to say congratulations there, you Tumblr feminists. You're shooting, you're going for the gold. You want to become bukkake fucking porn stars. Way to go. Have your cup of male tears. You bathe in the male tears. Have at them. Let's just hit them with that. Let them be known as bukkake porn stars. And I don't want to insult the porn stars out there, but if those feminists want to be known as bathing in male tears, well, hey, you know what? So where's your bukkake porn?
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. We should be coming up near the end. We've discussed this a little bit, but let's go ahead and discuss this a little bit more. There's no need for male domestic violence shelters. Candy, do you have anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, that's absolute bogus. If I'm not sure if either of you know this, but a man up in Canada tried for years to get domestic shelters for men established, couldn't get funding, nothing, and this man, just completely distraught over this, he committed suicide. So the fact that there is no need, of course there is need for it. I mean, there was another story about a family trying to go to a domestic shelter. I forget the story of why they needed to, but I believe it was a mother and her children. They had to live on the streets for a few weeks until they could find a motel, because their eldest son had autism, and other women in the shelter were like, oh, we feel threatened, he needs to go, he needs to get out. But there is an absolute need. I mean, what about like trans youth and gay youth? what about them? Is their struggle somehow not because, oh, well, women are the only ones who get abused? These are kids who are living on the street, can't go into shelters, can't try to find help because of what they identify as. And it just blows my mind that people can say that, oh, men need no help when some men, when it was proven, I forget what the source is, maybe one of you has it, but it was shown that like 40 something percent of domestic abuse is toward men. And then we have the Erin Prezi, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but she tried stating that women can be just as abusive as men, and she was run out of the country pretty much by feminists for even suggesting that. So I have absolutely no qualms, but that is definitely something that is absolute bogus. Men need the same kind of help and protection that women get just willy nilly. I mean, I think in my state alone, which is Rhode Island, I think there's at least 7 different domestic abuse shelters in the state, and I'm doubting that there's even one that caters or even suggests to men that they need help. I mean, most hotlines for like domestic abuse, they don't even say, "Oh, if you feel you're threatened." In the male one, it says, "If you feel you are violent." It doesn't even give men the choice to say that they're being hurt. It's, oh, you're automatically the violent one. So yeah, I think that that one is completely bogus.
Before you go, Dan, because I know you have a lot to say on this, and you could probably directly respond to what she's saying, I'm going to reveal something personal, and I try not to do this because I don't want to sound like a victim or anything, but, if it helps someone, I want to say it. About a month ago, I called a suicide hotline because I just got really, really low. And I'm fine now, don't get me wrong. I'm better now because I've found a way to reach out to people better. But I called a suicide hotline. I was like really scared that I was going to do something regrettable. And I called up, and first they transferred me a couple of different times. And finally I talked to someone, and I'm like, okay, well, here's my situation. I'm disabled, haven't gotten medical care, and then I'm worried about my living situation because I got kicked out of my home. And I'm not exaggerating. I actually got kicked out of my home because my mother had a conniption fit. And the woman said, well, we're going to assign a caseworker to you. What's your phone number? Well, I don't have a phone number. And she's like, well, we're going to have someone call you in a few days. Is there anything else I can help you with? And I'm like, I'm on a fucking suicide hotline. I'm ready to commit suicide, and you ask me if there's anything else you can do for me? My God. And I can't help but wonder, if I was a woman, would that been her next response? Or would she said, is there any, you shouldn't commit suicide. And she treated me like it was a customer help desk, like I was trying to get someone to come out and check my cables. I mean, and this doesn't exactly have to do with domestic violence, but I think it's parallel that, I was calling for help, and the only help I got was someone who was supposed to call me that never did. And it's like, what if I hung up that call and committed suicide right then and there? Because I didn't get the help that I was looking for, that I finally broke down and called to get help, and I didn't. So I wanted to share that with all of you. I'm sorry to be such a downer on that, but Dan, do you want to respond to Candy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd just like to correct you on one thing here. And this is the way I see it. It's not that you're a victim. It's that you survived some shit, and you made it through to the other side, okay? Victim sits there and wallows in their own misery for eternity. Victim politics, okay? So I wouldn't say that, that's just my take on it. And, like I said, it's just my take on it. So that's that. Candy, that gentleman's name was Earl Silverman. He was a good friend of mine. I worked with him over the internet for about 2 years. He got about one check out of the government for $800. He operated the only abused men's shelter in Canada for 20 years on his own dime. Committed suicide April 26, 2013. I spoke with him 2 weeks before his death. I asked him to call me no matter what. Gave him my cell phone number. Said, I don't care what fucking time of day you want to call. You call if you need to. And I asked him numerous times if he was okay. I can't, really, to be honest with you, I can't even take his fucking name off my Skype list there, nor on my Facebook friends. I just can't. I don't have the heart to, take him off there. I also, it also serves as a reminder on why I should be doing what I'm doing. So that's that as far as the role goes. There is 8 beds for abused men in Canada. 8 beds for a population of, well, the last general social survey was 585,000 domestically abused men and 601 domestically abused women. So that study points to parity, pretty much, 0.4% of a difference. And that difference, 1% or less, has remained constant for the last 3 general social surveys. And they're done every 5 years, and they take a fairly large sample portion, as far as studies go. So that's that. There's 600 abused women's shelters in Canada, at least, maybe a little more. There's about 90 of them in Ontario. They get about $142 million, at least in the 2012-2013 fiscal year. 83 million of that goes directly into the shelters. Again, the price ranges from $90 per bed per person per night to $575 per bed per person per night. Guys get squat. Their options are, hit the streets, hit a homeless shelter, or, just do whatever, just make do. Then there's the children, which they, if they go to a homeless shelter, do they leave the children behind with an abusive spouse? And when I say abusive spouse, they are all, they are ultimately failing homosexual men as well. The women's shelters, as I understand it, they will deal with lesbian domestic violence victims, so they are covered. So that that is that is what it is. It's good. I don't want to see any abuse victims being turned away and being told they are a second-class human being, like I was. Catholic Family Services has diddly fucking squat for a guy. And they're supposed to, they say family services. Well, aren't men part of the family? Aren't males part of the family? I called out to Bryony House in Nova Scotia. The woman there, and the Bryony House is a domestic abuse shelter. She agreed that, that men are getting screwed over as far as domestically abused men go. And that there should be services. I've called the Ontario Attorney General a few years ago, which reminds me I should probably give him a ring again, or her a ring. I can't remember which, whether it's a guy or a girl now, because we just had a changing of ministers kind of gig going on. It used to be Garrettson. I think he's gone now. I think there's somebody new in place. So probably a good time to call them and ask them, what the hell's going on. And when I did call them, the woman who answered the phone for the Attorney General of Ontario, she was very, very nice and very, very civil, and I have no beef with her whatsoever. However, she did agree and point out that, yeah, there is discrimination going on as far as the abuse industry goes in Ontario. Now, when I went to the Ontario Attorney General's website and I called the abuse hotline, well, the woman there said, "I'm sorry, this is only for women, domestically abused women." It's like, well, there's no other hotlines listed on the Attorney General's website. Where's the one for guys? Oh, well, and then she tried to give me, I believe she tried to give me the sexually abused men's hotline. And I'm sorry, I was not asking for that. And when I started to tell her the numbers, well, she got all in a huff and hung up on me. I also called the White Fibbon Task Force here in Ontario, Toronto area. That was answered by a gentleman by the name of Clay Jones, who's their media director. And when I kind of put forth, hey, aren't you kind of interested in dealing with the whole domestically abused population? His response was, well, that's not in our mandate, and this is the number you should call. And oddly enough, this domestic violence expert was trying to get past me on to the fucking sexually abused line again. And when I caught him on it, he was like, well, yeah, you certainly do know your stuff. And it's like, yeah, because I'm fucking calling you fuckers out for your fucking horseshit goddamn lies that puts guys in the fucking grave. I don't know how many of them, but it does, because it damn near put me in the fucking grave. And it goes beyond that. Society doesn't want to admit that men can be, victims. We can't even protect ourselves. If a woman is fucking physically attacking us, we know the gig. We fucking grab her arms to fucking protect ourselves, to stop her from hitting us, and we're fucking still going to jail. It's a fucking deplorable situation, and it gets under my skin. And I know it puts Ben in the grave. Put my fucking friend Earl in the grave in fucking April 2013. I know it fucking puts guys in the grave, and it fucking really pisses me off. So that's why I do what I do. Because I know there are people out there that can't do what I do. Not because they don't want to, but because they have children and they worry about their jobs. And I don't have to, I have no children, and I don't have to worry about my job. They fucked me so badly that I'm now on the government tit for disability. So what they're doing is they're paying me to keep the fucking government honest. And I'll do that for as long as possible. And they can't threaten my fucking kids because I don't got any. I do have Jeb, my hairy son. Love him fucking dearly. He's actually part of my fucking therapy. So that's my kind of spiel on that, and a little bit long-winded. And that's only Canada and Ontario specifically. And I do miss Earl. Like I said, he was a good friend of mine. I talked with him many hours. Last conversation lasted 40 minutes. Still got it saved. Well, just the Skype notice, call ended 40 minutes. I never, I kind of wish I had recorded, something with Earl. I never did, and that was kind of a regret of mine. But that is what it is. So yeah, there we go.
The thing with domestic violence, and I'm sure it's like this in Canada, but in the United States, a man doesn't even have to hit a woman. A woman can just claim that a man hit her, and the police will arrest him. Just like that. Candy, do you want to respond to what we've talked about?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm very sorry for your loss, Dan. I know how difficult it is to lose someone. I've lost a very good friend. She died in a car crash, but I know the difficulty of losing a very good friend. I just wanted to say thank you for telling me his name. I never really got it. A lot of the sources on his work is very skewed because I get a lot of it from Tumblr and such. Because when I try to look for this kind of stuff, I always get varying stories. But I just wanted to say that while you all were talking, I actually did light a candle for him. It's kind of a tradition of mine when I do hear that someone has passed on. I do try to honor that person even if I didn't know him, and I just wanted to say that I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thanks, Candy. I appreciate that. I will say one thing that happened when Earl passed there, when Earl took his own life, and I'll say this about anybody, because I lost my brother in 1982 to suicide. You can hate the sin all you want, but love the sinner. And, I hate what Earl did, but I still love him dearly. When I'm a little passionate about it, it bothers me. And when it did happen, given how I look and stuff, I might enjoy the odd beer, the odd cold beer, or in the wintertime, I do enjoy, Grey Goose vodka and soda, possibly maybe a little bit, kind of. But when Earl killed himself, I couldn't even look at booze for like 2 weeks. I just knew, and I'm old enough and wise enough. I'm going to claim wise enough to know that bad emotions and booze is a bad mix, and it leads to piss poor decision making skills. So I'm going to kind of throw out there that if you are upset and if things are nasty, do not turn to booze. It is not a solution. It's a band aid, and it can lead to really, really bad decision making. Okay, so just going to toss that out there. And thanks again, Candy. Don't I appreciate that, but it was Earl's choice at the end of the day.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And this one was a little bit all over the place, so I'll read the numbers on this. There is not enough strong female leads in the media. Now, 42% disagreed with this, 32% strongly agreed with this, and 26 were kind of in the middle. And I'm going to start on this one first. I'm kind of in the middle about this because I think that there are female leads out there, but I fear that they're the wrong kind, that they are the feminist leads. And they're strong, but they're claiming to be weak. And they're setting a bad precedence for women. They're setting a bad precedence for feminists. And it's just awful. So I don't really know how to give a definitive answer on this, but I do think that there are strong female in media, but they're the wrong kind. Candy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I would say I'm about the same area as you, that I do think that we have strong, but they're the wrong kind. But I do think that we do have some good ones. I'm coming from someone who is very big in cartoons and such. We have strong leads like that of Steven Universe, the Crystal Gems, who are all strong women, are identifying women, depends on who you ask. But we have strong characters coming out in movies, like, for example, I guess Mad Max. I have not personally seen it. I'm very much a I'll wait till it goes to the dollar theater kind of person. But I think we have Black Widow, we have the upcoming Supergirl. I think we have strong in media, we just don't have strong in politics, because when you go to more of the politics side, you kind of have like Hillary Clinton, who has a whole bunch of scandals behind her. You have Anita Scarcesian, who is about as big of a fraud as you're going to find. Um, and I think that's where the issue is coming from. We have strong in media, but it's more like entertainment media. We just don't have very strong in politics, because we do have things like mentioned before, Shirtgate, which is an absolute bogus nonsense. And then when we do have strong women like Christina Hoff Sommers, she's pushed aside because she doesn't fall in line with what they want to be seen as strength. And I think that's where we're kind of having the issue, because I think on its own in media with like movies and such, we do have plenty of strong female characters. They're just torn down by the political side of things. But that's where my stance would be on it.
I'm guessing you want me to jump in now. Yeah, I'd fall in the middle there, kind of. I don't know. I'm betting that Emma Sulkowicz must be pretty strong by now. Carting around a 50-pound mattress for 6 8 months every 5 days of the week. There, geez, that's got to build some muscles. She's got to be pretty fucking strong. Um, you know, that's got to build up some strength. She's got to be pretty strong female person, isn't she? I mean, come on, really? Anita Sarkeesian, I'm so sorry for being the starting, Toronto being the starting point of her career of lies. She went to York University. Um, and she cries how what a strong, empowered woman she is, and yet a video game apparently destroys her mentality. Really? Are you fucking serious? Um, what else? How about Beyonce? Okay, because Band Bossy. All right, yeah, that's a strong female lead that is hurt by a word bossy. Oh Jesus! If that's what's going to stop you from being an empowered individual, then trust me, it's better that you walk away at the word bossy instead of what you're probably going to encounter later on in life. Because if bossy makes you cringe, I guarantee the words that you will encounter later on in life will send you into a flying, crying tantrum. Sheryl Sandberg. Well, yeah, again, man, bossy. Are you sure you're a fucking strong person? I guarantee you, fucking Obama gets called a lot fucking worse than bossy, and yet he still manages to take it on and do it. Not that I'm agreeing with his politics or anything like that. Just for an example. So yeah, there's interesting individuals out there. Would I say they're strong? Not by any stretch of the definition of the word. Are they great money makers? Oh, absolutely. They're strong money makers. My God, they know how to play that victim card and that victim violin to the tune of millions and millions and millions of fucking dollars. But they're the wrong individuals. Aaron Pitsey, Christina Hoff Summers. These are strong individuals. These are the people that will do things and speak the truth no matter how much grief and how much bullshit they got to put up with. Look at the comic book world. They're flipping to a female Thor. Well, if you look back in the 70s, she was already there. So why tear down the male version of the Thor? I don't know, because you know what? It's going to make somebody empowered. Who? How? Don't fucking get that one. Spider Woman. They fucking ranted and raved about her fucking keister. And unfortunately, it was the same fucking pose for the male Spider-Man. Wonder Woman, Supergirl, all the same shit. It's all it's weakness saying we're empowered because we can change this. Well, really all you're showing is is at the end of the day what you're doing is you're showing misogyny. You're saying and insinuating that women can't handle a little bit of whatever sexuality, and that they need to be protected and put in a bubble wrap fucking society so that they can operate. I say horse shit. I know plenty of fucking strong women. Karen Strawn, Allison Tiemann, Judgy Bitch. These are strong fucking women. Intelligent women. Make it on their own fucking dime. They don't make it because of he for she. And by the way, he for she, how about us for we? Because that would be fucking equal. So all the wrong type of fucking women are being, promoted, and all the the right women are being buried, and that's a fucking bloody travesty of society.
Strong in presence, weak in character. Candy, you want to add to that?
I would say with regards to female Thor, she literally was just a feminist talking head. Within the first few pages, she was more concerned with the criminal insulting her with, ew, you're a feminist, and the fact that he robbed and potentially hurt people. And it was recently reviewed that the person turning into female Thor is, in fact, Jane Foster, and turning into Thor is advancing her cancer, but she's doing it because they won't offer their technology to all of the people on Earth. And I'm like, so your reason is the aliens who do not want to interfere with the technological advances of Earth don't want to cure cancer, so you're gonna kill yourself faster. Did anyone proofread this before putting it out by any chance? Because this is pretty bad. And it in fact is one of the lowest rated comic books of right now. No one likes it. So I definitely agree with like comic books going crazy. I mean, just take for example the Killing Joke reference for the new 52 Batgirl, where they had a Joker holding her and giving her a smile with, I think it was lipstick or something, and he had like the gun to her head, and everybody just went batshit insane over it. I'm sitting there like, it's a reference to a very, very popular comic book. Well, what the hell, guys? Calm down. Um, and it's things like that that I think definitely should be more looked at in media. Like, look, we can't have any strong characters unless they appeal to you, and then even then you're still going to find a way to find an issue with it. So that's what I would say on that.
Okay. I don't have too much to say on that, so we'll just go ahead and move on. Video games do not sexualize men. And as you can see, there's a lot of that disagree with that. Um, oh, my mind is starting to go. We have to end soon, but we can get through the rest of these. Dan, that's the name I couldn't think of. Do you have any opinion on video games at all?
Oh no, men aren't sexualized at all. He-Man, fucking, like they got the fucking, the Adonis body. That's not sexualizing them at all. The form-fitting fucking armor, nah, fuck, no way. Cod pieces for fucking, for wearing them around, yeah, fuck. And I go way back into the fucking, way back into video games. The ones that don't sexualize were like Centipede, Galaxian, you know what I mean? Where there was no sexual, or we were fighting aliens kind of gig. Asteroid. These would be the ones that don't sexualize anybody. But the other ones, nah, no, they're not sexualized at all. Yeah, right. Fucking lie.
A point, a point that I always like to point out with this that men are sexualized in video games because Anita Sarkeesian's always talking about how women are just used as objects to be interacted with, and they're sexualized and blah blah blah. And it's like anywhere from 95 to 99% of all the people who die in video games are male characters. And it's like, take Metal Gear Solid, for example. All of the soldiers were men, and even in Metal Gear Solid 2, you couldn't see their faces. They became even more background decoration. There was just nothing to them. They were just things to kill. Although Metal Gear Solid did allow you to sneak around them and not kill them, it didn't really matter if you did kill them. And another point that I wanted to make out on this, it just kind of went from my mind. Candy, I'm sure you have something you want to say on this.
Obviously, if they've never played Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy has the most sexualized men ever. I mean, you look up any Final Fantasy guy, you will find some way that he's been sexualized. And yeah, that honestly, the whole men aren't sexualized in games. Have you never played Assassin's Creed? All those men are very pretty-fied. And I think it's absolutely just bogus because I mean I play video games constantly and I will always find some instance where I'm like, did he really need that particular outfit or that particular cod piece? Because I'm pretty sure if you sit down, that is going to hurt. But I don't mind it personally. Like, I mean, I'm more into women myself, so I really have never had an issue with sexualization. One of my favorite games is an online MMO called Terra, and the best part about it is men are just as badly dressed as the women. Like, he'll have like full armor, and then he's got a bare midriff, and it's honestly I think sexualization, I don't feel it's a terrible thing if it's being done to both sides, though I do feel people need to get away from the whole, oh well, men have a power fantasy. I'm like, no, it's the same thing. You can't say that Red Sonja is not a powerful it's not a powerful character because she's wearing a chain bikini, then turn around and go, oh, but Conan's what every man wants to be. No, it doesn't work that way. It's the same side of the field. Barbie is no different from a He-Man or a G.I. Joe toy. You can't say one thing and then don't apply it to the other. Such as with Bayonetta, she was designed by the not the creators of the game, but the creator of the character. She was designed to be her power fantasy, which Anita Scarcesian completely ignored and tried to put out, but people were kind of like, no, she was actually designed by a woman. Nice try, though. But yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Okay, so we've kind of talked about this next one, so we're going to skip it, but major consensus that men do not deserve to be raped, whether they're in jail or not. So there's not enough body positive campaigns for men and boys. Candy, do you want to try this one?
Yeah, I do agree with that. Men's body positivity is very much like be buff, be this, be in shape. There isn't very much you're okay the way you are, the way it is with women. Something that a lot of people do ignore is Axe body spray is actually owned by the same company as Dove. So it's actually kind of hypocritical that Dove is all about be natural, be amazing, and you have Axe body spray, which is like, oh, you have to be this certain kind of type to appeal to women. And Axe body spray gets the most flake for it, where Dove is praised. So I do think that there needs to be more body positivity, especially in geekdom. Something I really notice is a lot of people try to attach fake geek girl, fake geek boy to things, and then laugh when someone says, well, this person doesn't actually know anything. They're like, well, it's fine because she's a girl. It's okay that she wants to call herself a geek and not really be involved. But the thing is a lot of geek men, they've never been treated like nicely about it. Like nerd, geek, comic book lover. It's only very recently that that's becoming more mainstream, more cool. So I find it just absolutely hysterical that we can say, oh, these geek girls can be whatever they want, but geek men need to stop gatekeeping. It's like for the last 20 something years, they've been insulted for what they love, but you somehow don't want to. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why my phone is on. But that's where I feel it needs to stop, because men don't have body positivity. Men don't have it's okay to be the way you are. They have be buff, don't be a sissy.
Dan?
Well, yeah, I agree with Candy there, and we'll add, and make sure you got a big fat wallet, fast, fine car, big house. That's that's the criteria. If you fit those criteria, you know what? Then you will be viewed as being a decent man. You will be a human, adult human, right? Adult human, classification male sort of deal. Um, and really guys are we have to prove ourselves, whereas as Candy kind of points out, for a woman you just got to be, and that's it. You're accepted. Society will bend over backwards to help you. And for guys, they seem to want to uh, force you to grab your ankles, and that's it. Just take it.
Okay, so yeah, you both bring up very good points on that. We've kind of talked this one to death. I mean, that's generally our general statement here. We agree that men and boys' issues are routinely ignored by the general population. Women are paid equally for the same work. Dan, I'm sure you have something to say on this.
Well, according to the last survey that I seen, under 30 women are actually being paid more for the same work. Then you can add on, affirmative action. And I'm just going to say it like this: that if a woman is affirmative actioned into a job, and I'm going to point to a recent situation down at the fire department down in New York, there, where she couldn't pass the physical exams and still got the job, then obviously she's being paid to do less of a job, the same wage as somebody who is able to do the full job. Now, that is not to say that I say anybody, either sex can only do that job, but the person who gets hired for that job better be able to do the whole fucking job. Not half a job, not three-quarters of a job, but the whole fucking job, because that job has people's lives at risk attached to it, or people's lives that are in risk attached to it. And so it needs to be merit-based. Um, there's also a famous Hamilton video of a female police officer that gets owned by a female gangbanger, like tossed around like a rag doll. So we're paying that female officer a wage that she can't do the job, and that is, yeah, again, that's putting lives at risk there. And again, hire on merit, and that's the way it should be. And I'm also going to point to another situation that happened over in, I believe it was Ireland, and it was two women who were hired on as the security force for a nuclear fucking power plant. Now, they could not handle the assigned weapons to protect that power plant, and so they launched a human rights complaint, and I think they got like 35,000 pounds each for it. Now, their complaint kind of revolved around that their hands were too small. Well, what about the guys' hands that are too small to handle those weapons? Does that mean that it was sexist discrimination against them too? Because there are guys that are born smaller than other guys. Nobody. We're all different. We have different abilities, different skill sets, and we are able to do different things. And really, that's a blessing, because we'd all be pretty fucking bored if we all looked the same and acted the same and talked the same. So yeah, it's women are paid equally for the same work. Well, I strongly agree, but I also know that there is instances where they are paid more to do less work. That's about it for me.
Candy?
Yeah, that actually makes me think of a video I watched by, I believe it was Teal Deer. He talked about a firefighter who not only campaigned to have the limit of age raised so she could still apply, but she didn't even pass the 18-minute test for firefighters. She took 22 minutes when it's supposed to be 18, and she struggled the entire time. And she was still brought on as a firefighter. And even at the peak of her fitness, she still could not do it. I believe that women are paid equally for the same work. They just do it less, or they're not in the same ability. And I do agree with Dan that a lot of times this can result in people being sued, getting more money because they can't handle the work. And it's things like that that scare me. Like, I know that I believe it's in the United States military, the amount that a soldier has to carry, like that would represent another body that fell that you're supposed to drag back, was lowered because so many women could not complete it. And that's not even including the amount of armor, accessories, and such that the soldier would be carrying. And to me, that's terrifying that these people's lives are in danger because some women want to try and do the whole girl power, I can do it, when you can't. I mean, I personally am disabled. I know I'm never going to be an Olympic swimmer. Does that mean I'm going to stop swimming? No, but it doesn't mean I'm going to go out and be like, hey, I want to be a lifeguard. No, I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm not going to risk somebody's life to prove myself in some weird way. So I do think women are paid equally. I think we just have that whole wage gap thing because people do not recognize that, again, women are going to take more time for themselves than men. So that would be my opinion on it.
When I hear about women suing a company because of some discretion, and the courts basically just fall over and give it to them, all I can think is you're hurting the company and all of the other workers. I mean, you extort money because, oh my God, your hands can't fit into the guns. Well, you probably shouldn't have been put into that position in the first place, and you probably were put in that position because you were specifically a woman and they needed a quota. And all you're going to do is hurt the workers in that, and it's a very selfish thing. But, the other thing also is that men are more likely to work overtime. They're more likely to put in a lot of extra hours because they are the breadwinners, and our society demands this of them, where women get the option to balance a career and family. And in fact, most men who have to put in all these extra hours, they would love to spend more time with their family. But they don't really get that option. They have to work. And, it's Warren Farrell who said that the problem with the wage gap is that we are assigning value to having more money. That when you have more money, you have more power. Well, a married man who's working overtime, all his money is going to his family. He's not going to see very much of that. And if he does get some sort of bonus or reward or some perk, he's earned it. But all of what he has, everything that he is, has to go to his family. He has to get his children into the best schools and go to college. And, a wife that doesn't necessarily have to work, but if she does, she better get paid the same amount he does, even if she works less. There are some hardworking women out there who do work hard, do the extra hours, and do everything they can. But there are a lot more men that are sacrificing themselves. And I made a little thing that said that, if men work 2 extra hours a day for a 40-week period, they'd end up working 60 hours. That equates to about 25% difference in pay from women who only work 8 hours. And that's about where the feminists say the wage gap is. So, all right, let's go to the next one. I agree with Gamergate. I don't think we really need to discuss this one because this brings on a whole other topic, but I'll just leave that up there for a sec so people can see it, how people responded. And we are at the last one, and we can talk about this real briefly. I didn't do any of the numbers for this, but toys like Barbie negatively affect the aspiration and or self-esteem of girls. And the one girl that we have here, why don't you take it down? No, I'm just kidding, Candy.
Yeah, actually, I can speak on that from a collector point of view. I actually collect the Mattel line Monster High and Ever After High, and where I live, the apartment building, they've recently started allowing college kids move in. I personally have I live with my father, but I pretty much watch the house since he's working all the time and does not feel comfortable leaving an empty house full of electronics. So I moved in as I'll keep an eye on it and lowers my rent. But they recently started allowing college kids move in, and one guy, his girlfriend, complete Tumblr gender studies girl, and I had my dolls out on my window while I was cleaning their shelf, and she knocked on the window and said, "That is terrible. You're telling the young girls that live here that that's what they need to look like." I'm like, it's a ghost mold. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. But no, I think it's absolutely bogus that we have this whole, oh, Barbie promotes body negativity. Barbie's entire concept from when she was created was pretty much girls can do almost anything. Yes, she started small, but she also was created in a time period in which women weren't exactly given a lot of free choice in what they did, but Barbie still gave them kind of a look, you can do this too. Like, you can become a phone operator, you can be a flight attendant, you can do all of these amazing things. And then in the 90s, as a 90s girl, I really remember body positive Barbie. I remember you can do this, you can become a what was some of the more popular ones? You can do veterinarian. You can be. I think one of them was actually a rocket scientist. Barbie has always been very much girls be everything you can be, and then in the 2000s and going on, she was more of being fresh face, not so heavily makeup and so on. And honestly, if your child's self-esteem is built on a doll, you did something wrong as a parent, because I never was hurt by Barbie size. I loved collecting dolls. I absolutely love the dolls I have now. I mean, I feel like Monster High does a very good job of being positive in yourself. They have different creatures. They have mermaid creatures. They have a centaur. The headmistress of their school, which is an exclusive toy, is actually headless. You can pop her head off and on. They have, in fact, a spider character who has multiple arms and such. And I don't feel that dolls are bad. I feel people attach the traditional gender roles of Barbie from way back when, and that's where they get the whole negative viewpoint. Because somebody actually did a post on this. If later on, I might actually give her blog, Tina Fly Viper. She's an amazing former feminist on Tumblr who oftentimes will take questions like these and just annihilate them. She had a post talking about how G.I. Joe, the form that he's given the mold, even at his peak, Arnold Schwarzenegger couldn't have that body. So if we're going to say that a female doll's body is negative, well, what about the male dolls? How is that any different? The big buff guy that in reality probably would fall over from his torso being too heavy for his body. So I don't think Barbie at all is a negative self-esteem. I think parents that create that kind of issue are more negative, but that's just my opinion on it.
And Dan, what do you have to say about Barbie?
I think Candy hit all the high notes. Perfectly there. If you are raising your child to believe in a fantasy figure, then yeah, there's something wrong with what you're talking about there. To you're imparting on your child or imprinting on your child. Yeah, G.I. Joe and his kung fu grip. Yeah, that's quite the standard for guys to have set for them. And again, gotta have that. It's not only the size of their muscles, it's the thickness of their wallet. Let's not forget that. So yeah, I think Candy really hit all the high notes and hit them wonderfully.
I kind of want to talk about what you're talking about with Barbie, with all the different things that she could do, and I think that was one of the things about G.I. Joe when I was a kid. Not those big dolls, but those little action figures that you had. And one of the great things about that is there's just so many choices to choose from. And yeah, most of them were white, but a few of them were black and other races, and it was just like, pick out your favorite one and play with that one. You didn't care how they looked, you just played with them. And I imagine that girls who played with Barbie pretty much did the same thing. They weren't really looking at her body, they were just like putting on different outfits and trying different makeup or what have you, or shoes. All girls need shoes, but it was just having fun and experiencing it and trying, improving upon your creativity. So this idea of Barbie negatively affecting anything is just kind of like a slap in the face to the children inside all of us that says, you know what, we just want to play. Let's not make this about politics, which extends into playing video games. We just want to play video games. Let's leave the politics out. Either of you want to respond?
I'm not much to say. There was actually another top popular action figure for guys at that age, and that was Steve Austin, the $6 million man. Well, there's some pretty unrealistic fucking goals for a guy. How X-ray, bionic vision, bionic arm, bionic leg, and there was the corresponding bionic woman too, played by let me see here, Lindsay Wagner, I think was the bionic woman, and oh shit, I can't remember. Steve Austin was played by, oh, I can't remember his name, but anyways, um, yeah, you know what? Both sexes had, those toys had, very, very unrealistic, attributes for both sexes. And if you're going to raise your child, you best not, best let them know there's a difference between fantasy, imagination, and reality.
Candy?
Yeah, I completely and totally agree. I've never seen why toys need to be different or gendered really even. I mean, yeah, you have the pink Barbie aisle, but I don't think anyone outright goes, "Oh, that's a girl's aisle." It's just that's Barbie's aisle. Who cares? I don't think there was a issue when like say Star Wars toys were coming out. I played with the pull out lightsabers as much as my cousins. Everybody got a kick out of playing with the easy bake ovens, and then like I personally never had an easy bake. I had the creepy crawly one because to me that was much more cool. You got quite the sugar high out of it though because that was a lot of corn syrup. But stuff like that, I don't think kids ever even focus on it. It's just, this is a cool toy for me. Who cares about anything else? And I feel like, we need to, as you said, leave the politics out. Barbie does not need to somehow become more realistic. I absolutely can't stand the real Barbie. I'm like, as I believe it was Sargon of Akkad who did it in one of his This Week in Stupid. He was like, I don't exactly want a male doll that looks like my uncle, and he put up a picture of, I'm pretty sure it was a stock picture of a, kind of out of shape, sort of pasty kind of guy, and I agree with that. I don't want a child to take up a doll that looks plain. What kind of fantasy fun are you going to have because, oh, look, this doll, you can put stretch marks on her. Okay, so, oh great, she looks like my Aunt Carol. Big deal. It's not exactly anything fun or new. Kids are playing with toys because they're creating fantasy worlds, and I feel like with the way we're going with toys, putting more emphasis on making them normal and plain, we're taking away that fantasy element, and we are creating a very cynical younger generation because they're not really allowed to enjoy fanciful things. Video games are too violent or sexist. Toys are too pretty and whatnot. And it's like, what's the issue though? Why can't a child be raised to understand, as stated, that this is a toy? It's meant for fun. It's not meant to teach you in any manner. And if you want toys to teach your children, there are educational toys. I personally had a archaeological, cannot say words today, little digging set where you got to unearth little fossils, and that was a lot of fun for us. But if you need something to educate your child on self-esteem via a little plastic doll, you really fucked up. So that's my final word on it.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our video. Next week we'll be doing another video, and as you can see, the next section is multiple choice. So there's a lot of information here, and we won't be able to get to it today. I think this has been my longest video so far. Not that I'm complaining. This has been fantastic. But I do want to throw it out to our guests. If you want to come back anytime, like for this series, you're welcome to do so. But I want to go ahead and give you two the opportunity to say any final words about what we've discussed today, anything we might have missed out on, or just want to say gibberish. I mean, that's perfectly okay too. Dan, you were here the longest, so I'll let you start first.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's been an honor and a pleasure. I truly appreciate it. Don't forget, I'm I'm the chief buck stopper at AnnieMissAndrew.com. So feel free to stop by there. If you want this up there, please, give me a heads up. I will put it up there for you. I really enjoyed conversing with both of you. Highly intelligent individuals. I, really enjoyed that and have been enriched by it. I'll also point out that don't be afraid to call their bullshit out, folks. You see the lies, call the lies out. And we're working towards that day where people don't need to hide from these crazy feminists who will make it their mission to ruin people's lives for disagreeing with them. Take care of your own backyards, folks, and if we all do that and we get rid of the fucking feminist trash heap that's been piled in them, we'll have a much better society.
And Candy, you came into the middle of this to kind of discuss your personal situation, and I think you really added a lot to this. Is there anything else, any lasting comments you want to make?
Um, Not really. It was honestly an honor to be able to come on and talk to other people. I actually don't get this very often. I live pretty much in social justice wonderland up here in the East Coast. Everyone is very feminist, everything, and drives me insane sometimes. But it was honestly an honor to just chat and get different viewpoints, learn new things. I'm always open to learning. I can be found on Twitter by Candy Jam Cosplay. I mostly rant and rave about video games, cosplay, and every now and then I'll post some art. But if anyone wants to talk more, anything, I'm always open. I have no life, so. And again, it was a total honor to speak with you both. Definitely, it was really awesome to meet an older person like yourself, Dan. I'm very much in that whole Y generation of me. So I don't often get different viewpoints that I can converse with them frankly. So it was honestly an awesome time, and thank you so much.
Okay, so when we end, I'll just ask that you two stay on for just a moment longer. But yeah, thank you for everyone who came into the chat room. I tried to read that as best as I could, but then, we kind of got lost. This has been really great. I'm glad that I've done this. Thank you, Dan, for agreeing to doing this, because it's been a great honor for me to have you on. And Candy, I've always wanted to be on a video with you, and I think we've been on one other one, which I think was a Cytheria video. And that was only for a short time, but I'm very thankful that we got an opportunity to converse. But yeah, this was very fantastic. Most of the people who come here already know who I am, but you can find me on Twitter as ggmad_cat. You can also find my articles on honeybadgerbrigade.com. Also, I'm a writer and a publisher now. I have my own publishing company, but I have 3 books on Amazon. If you're ever interested in checking out my work, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. And that's going to do it from me. I thank everyone for coming out, and see you next time.